Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Councillor Godfrey. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Winchester City Council's Planning Committee taking place in the Walton Suite of Winchester Guildhall. It is Wednesday, the 11th of March, 2026, and the time is 9:30 a.m. My name is Councillor Jane Rutter, and I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. To my right is my Vice Chair, Councillor Jonathan Williams. Around the table, we have the other elected members of the committee, and we are supported today by a number of officers. Deborah Smith, Principal Planning Officer Team Leader, Daniel Lucas, our legal advisor, the case officers, which will change with every item, and Matthew Watson from Democratic Services, who supports the committee and operates the recording equipment. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. May I remind you all to ensure that your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are on silent or preferably turned off entirely. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Please make sure you've looked at the handout provided on your chairs or on the information slides displayed on the way in or during the breaks for further guidance about this meeting. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, I ask that nobody calls out from the back of the room during the proceedings. In accordance with our public speaking protocols, those who have registered to speak will be able to address the meeting for their allotted time. If there is any disruption of the proceedings and the work of the committee is not respected, it may be necessary to temporarily adjourn the meeting. Finally, can I welcome members of the public to the meeting? Those of you who have registered to speak, I will call you forward when it is your turn to make your contribution. Members of the committee may ask you questions of clarification, so please remain at the microphone until after members' questions. The microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base of the unit, and a timer will appear on the screen to remind you of your remaining time. Turning now to the agenda. Matthew, apologies and deputy members, please.
Good morning, Chair members. So we have one apology from Councillor Cunningham this morning, who's been replaced by Councillor Godfrey, which means that all 9 members of the committee are present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any disclosures of interests, please? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare that I have a disclosable pecuniary interest in respect to items on the agenda today due to my additional role as a Hampshire County Councillor. However, as there is no material conflict of interest regarding these items, I have a dispensation granted by the Audit and Governance Committee that enables me to speak and vote on these items.
Thank you very much. Any other disclosures? Nope. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can I take it that these are agreed as an accurate record? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And can we accept the update sheet as an addendum to the report, please? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. That's quite a long update sheet. I'm sorry about that, but it's quite a technical, as you will see, application. So now we come to the first application. This is item 6 on our agendas, land adjacent to Titchfield Lane in Wickham. And our presenting officer, and the first one in 10 years, I understand, Nicola, is Nicola Martin. So over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to a proposal to construct a battery energy storage system, abbreviated to BESS, on an area of land off Titchfield Lane. Along with the main energy development and compound, a new vehicle access would be formed off Titchfield Lane. In the event that permission is granted, the development will be time limited to 35 years, after which time the development will be decommissioned and removed from the site. This first slide shows the location plan identified by the red line. The site measures in total approximately 2.6 hectares. Access to the site is currently by an unmade track from the residential property to the north. The railway line runs to the northeast of the site, with pylons and overhead cables running across the northern part of the site. I can show the mouse marking. Other than the property to the north, there are no dwellings within 100 metres. The majority of the site is adjoined by fields and woodland, except where it fronts Titchfield Lane. This slide shows an aerial photograph. The site is identified by the yellow star. The red lines show the public right-of-way network in the vicinity. The closest public right-of-way is approximately 200 metres to the north of the application site, separated from the site by Titchfield Lane and also built development. The hatched areas, which are dark and hatched, show the ancient woodland, including the Botley Wood, Everett's Copse, Triplerside to the south. This next slide shows the site in context with other energy development. The site application here is shown in with the red line. Botley Wood substation, to which the development proposes to connect, is located to the approximately 1 kilometre to the west of the site, on the other side of Titchfield Lane, alongside it, down its own driveway. To the south, approximately 350 metres to the south, is the battery storage at Ash Farm, and across the railway is plot 10 of the solar farm, which was relatively recently approved. This slide shows the proposed layout. The proposed new vehicle access from Titchfield Lane is shown in orange. The 132 kV substation is in the western part of the site, with the main battery storage compound to the rear. That would be enclosed by a palisade fence, and would include a acoustic barrier shown in the orange. I'll just show with the mouse here. No, I'm not very good at this. There we go. The green items are the battery units themselves, with the black rectangles as the what's called described as power stations, which include the inverters. There's an internal access road around, looping around the site that's shaded in grey, and this proposed site has a planned capacity of 50 megawatts. It would connect to the grid by an underground cable, but to Botley Wood, as I showed in the previous slide. That is, the cable connection is not part of this connection, and it's intended to be laid by the district network operator under their PD rights. This slide shows the proposed external lighting design. Lights would be fitted with motion sensors and would be dark sky compliant to reduce upward glare. Along the southern and eastern boundary, where the application site abuts the ancient woodland, the lights would have rear glare shields to reduce light into those habitats. And as I mentioned, the lights would be motion censored and would only be used when someone's on site, and would not necessarily be used during the daylight hours. The next few slides show the proposed on-site structures. This is the District Network Operator Building, DNO building, which has a height of roughly 5 metres. A typical CCTV and lighting pole of 4.3 metres in total. Switchgear building. This is one of the taller built structures on site and would have a height of 4.5. The monitoring room and warehouse. These next three slides are the kind of the electrical looking parts. The auxiliary transformer is the first one. The power station, which are also described as inverters. So these contain the inverters and are these black rectangles shown on the layout slide. And these are the battery units themselves. They're shown in green on the slide. This slide shows the palisade fence and also the acoustic barrier. The acoustic barrier would have a height of 3.5 metres and the fence would be 2.4. And this is the substation, side view of the substation, the DNO substation, which is the part of the site that is at the western side. This slide shows the landscape plan. It illustrates the various planting that's proposed, in particular along the southern boundary with trees planting and along Titchfield Lane with grass, wildflower meadow planted to the south and to the north. This shows the fire strategy plan. This shows the location of the two hydrants proposed for the site. Between them, they would provide a water supply in case of fire, need of fire, of, I think it's, no, it is 1,900 litres per minute for 2 hours, which is in excess of the current guidelines produced by the National Fire Chiefs Council. It shows spaces of 10 metres from the batteries and any vegetation, and spaces of 3 metres between the battery units and the acoustic barrier. This slide is shows the cut and fill proposed for the site. The green areas are areas of cut, and the orange areas are areas of fill. The most relevant part, perhaps, is on the western side, where an area of cut abuts an area of fill. This is intended to create a stepped part of the site, so that the tallest part of the site, which is the DNO substation, is set at a lower level than the rest, and you will have a bank between the two areas of 2 metres. The majority of the material would be, of the fill material would be provided by the cut, with the exception of additional 30 cubic metres of material to be brought in. Onto some photographs. This slide is taken from the access to the existing substation, Botley Wood substation, and is looking towards the site, towards the location of the proposed access from Titchfield Lane. You're standing on, when the photograph's taken, standing on the concrete bell mouth of the access to the substation. These next views are from within the site. This one looks to the west, towards where the access would enter from Titchfield Lane. This one is looking towards the nearest residential dwelling to the north from inside the site. You can see they're taken different times of year. This is looking towards the ancient woodland to the south. Again, the ancient woodland to the south, and the ancient woodland to the east. Actually, go back to this one. This on the left-hand side, the railway line is running behind the tree line on the left-hand side, which you can sort of see from the little insert where the direction shown the photo is taken. So the railway line is behind there. This line, again, I've got a lot to show into the ancient woodland, sorry. So we've had the objection has been received from Parish Council and a number of objectors, and have raised particular issues, and just want to go through some of the key points that have been raised by the objectors. One of which was related to construction vehicle movements. Over the whole phase of there's 3 phases proposed for the construction: the enabling works, which would take 15 weeks approximately, the main construction period, which would take 13 weeks approximately, and the post-construction period, which would take 4 weeks approximately. Over the period of enabling works, there would be approximately, on average, daily HGV movements of 5. That's both ways, so it's in and out. For the main construction period, the average HGV movements per day would work out about approximately 1, and similarly for the post-construction period. Officers consulted with Hampshire County Council as a local highways authority, and who have reviewed the construction transport plan and the other elements of the transport information, and have advised that they have no objection. With regard to fire safety, officers have consulted with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service, and they have raised no objection subject to a condition. This condition that was discussed with the Fire and Rescue has been substantially expanded following the recent guidelines produced by the National Fire Chief Council. Concerns have been raised about the potential for fire water pollution into watercourses from any water that might be used to douse a fire. In the event of a fire, the penstocks or valves at either end of the site would be automatically shut or shut off remotely. And any fire water then used would be contained within the sealed attenuation crates underneath and drainage system within the site. This would then be removed within 24 hours by a licensed waste carrier. With regard to separation distances, concern has been raised that the distances of the battery units are too close together, given guidance produced by the for example, the National Fire Chiefs Council. The battery units in the clusters are approximately 30 centimetres separate. The parts that face each other are without vents or gaps or doors. The National Fire Chiefs Council guidance does set a distance of 0.9 approximately centimetres for separation. But what it also does is said that this guidance should be read in the context of another piece of guidance and shouldn't be taken by itself. That other piece of guidance provides a specification that shorter distances may be acceptable where they have been taken into, where assessments have been undertaken in accordance with appropriate testing, the UL 9540A. That requirement is specified in our condition. The condition includes a requirement to review the separation in line with UL 9540A at the time of that the condition is discharged, so that that would then be shared with the fire service. Also, concerns been raised that there's only a single access point into the site. Again, National Fire Chiefs guidance have stated that whilst 2 access points are preferable, a loop around this access is perfectly acceptable. This allows movement of fire tenders and allows fire tenders to move around the site easily. In addition, recent appeal decisions confirm that the detailed matters associated with fire safety can be addressed by conditions, and those appeals were in 23 and 24, and one of which was for a Secretary of State decision. With regard to noise, concern has been raised by noise. Initially, environmental health officers did raise concerns about the noise report. Additional information was provided, and subject to conditions requiring submission of technical specifications and noise validation report, officers are satisfied that the noise information provided and the noise mitigation is acceptable. With regard to need for battery storage, comments have been received that there is no need for it. However, NPPF specifically states that applicants do not need to demonstrate the overall need for renewable energy or low carbon energy, and planning authorities must give significant weight to the benefits associated with this type of energy generation. And with the connection date, concerns have been raised that the connection date of the site, the published connection date from NESO, the National Energy System Operator, is approximately, I think, 2038, 12 years from now. The connection process to the grid has been modified recently, so it's apparently now it is first ready, first connected, so that projects can be fast tracked if they're ready, so that if you have all your ducks in a row, including planning permission, then you are able to queue jump other projects that may have got in line first, but may perhaps be stuck, or may perhaps have stuck at appeal, perhaps, or may not have their finances sorted out. Without planning permission, projects can't be fast tracked. So in conclusion, officers recommend that the application is permitted, subject to the conditions within the report and also the modified conditions within the update sheet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nicola. We now turn to our public contributions to this discussion. And our first public speaker is Emma Rosling and Michael Perkins, who are sharing the 3 minutes of the objectors. Is that right? If you'd like to come forward, please, both of you. Have you discussed between you how you're going to share the 3 minutes? Okay, but you're both there to answer any questions. Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you. So over to you, Ms. Rosling. When you're ready, there's no rush, and the microphone is just switched on by pressing the button on the base, but the timer won't start until you start speaking.
Although this is a complex scheme with many issues, we will focus just today on 2, the incorrect noise assessment and our serious safety concerns. Most fundamentally, the noise has been assumed as a point source 1 metre above the ground and not from all sides of a 2.8 high container. And the report clearly states that the model assumes that the batteries and inverters are installed such that the effective source height is no greater than 1.5 metres above ground. This could only be achieved by digging the equipment below the ground, and this assumption has been missed by the EHO. This factual error makes a determination today unsafe on noise grounds with respect to policy DM20. But safety is our major concern. This proposal asks you to approve a major lithium-ion battery storage system on the basis that any safety issues can be sorted out later by conditions. This approach is not lawful, not safe, and not in the public interest. Government guidance on grid-scale battery safety is absolutely clear. Risk must be assessed at the outset of a project, considering all hazards, the total energy stored, the surrounding population, and a credible worst-case scenario. Health and Safety Executive do not regulate for fire safety at battery storage sites. The LPA is responsible for safety on land use. The updated National Fire Chief Council guidance is the only UK safety guidance which applies, and this application does not comply with their guidelines. It is not a statutory consultee, the fire service, so it cannot support or object, but it has advised that the NFCC guidance must be followed. This application contains only generic safety documents and no site-specific risk assessment. This, despite the site being directly underneath high-voltage power lines, 20 metres from a railway line, 100 metres from residential housing and a children's campsite, and immediately next to an ancient pond. Grenfell showed us the dangers of decision makers ignoring safety warnings or assuming that others would deal with them later. Case law and planning inspector decisions make it clear that fundamental safety issues cannot be left to conditions. With the register showing a 2036 grid connection date and the UK having enough consented battery capacity to already provide double the government's 2035 targets, there is no urgency to rush this decision. You are being asked to approve a high hazard industrial site with known non-compliance against current NFCC guidance, no site-specific risk assessment, an incomplete fire strategy and a flawed noise assessment. Unless you are 100% sure as a committee that you have all the information that allows you to override the guidance, we respectfully invite you to defer a decision until the full information is provided.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sticking within your 3 minutes. Well done. Members, I'm sure we have questions of clarification for our local residents. No, we don't. Thank you very much. You were very clear. It's a very technical report. We will have plenty of questions, I'm sure, for the applicant, but if you'd like to return to your seats now, thank you very much. Is Councillor Rapay from the Parish Council here? Good morning, Councillor Rapay. If you'd like to come forward, you have up to 3 minutes as well for your contribution, and when you're ready. Thank you very much. Don't forget to switch on the mic.
Good morning, everyone. The Parish Council's met twice with the company without any wider consultation undertaken. Energy policies, landscape and technology are changing very quickly, coupled with both uncertain national and international political changes. The parish recently sent you supplementary information, including the fact that already there's an oversupply of national and regional sites in existence. Other companies have been met, including Southern Water, who will be installing a new water transportation pipeline. All have led to the parish realising there's going to be very similar timing to undertake all the different installations down this lane. There are serious traffic concerns. The lane is inadequate. It's anticipated that there will be, in this 7.5 tonne limited road built on shrinking clay base, potholed, no pavement with trees and shrubbery right to the road edges. The vectors analysis shows that more than 10% of the route is so narrow, having several pinch points that a car and a truck cannot pass without encroachment. The planning officer states this development will require 61 HGV deliveries. In fact, The total truck movements, according to the applicants, is over 1,000. The applicant's data shows there will be 842 HGV trips across the 32-day total implementation period. During the enabling period, that will mean a two-way class 5 HGV movements per day. The normal level is 5 movements is 10 per day. So it's making a 300% increase in that road use. The problem is WCC and HCC only consider applications individually and not look at the overall cumulative road use. Traffic issues were acknowledged by the company and were receptive to the PC's idea to devise a traffic management forum with the PC monitoring situation. Besides concerns over safety, fire risk, there are flooding concerns, with Wickham recently receiving coverage on the local TV news. The lane flooded at the point where the site entrance is proposed, with water still lying there. National policy requires you to consider deliverability, effective use of land and realistic benefits. The parish wants to protect the deterioration of the quality of life for the residents caused by excessive industrialisation. The WCC to commit to a technology and bringing unnecessary disturbance for land is something which is likely to be out of date, and it's quite ludicrous. There's no demonstrable compelling need for this project, and members, you are unwise to make any decisions on taking over these fields in Titchfield Lane, as there's no local benefit.
I'm afraid you've run out of time, but thank you very much. We will see if the members have got any more questions for you. I think you've covered most of your points, haven't you? Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the parish council representative? No, you were very clear. Thank you very much indeed. If you could return to your seat. And finally, we have Jonathan Cooper, one of the representing the applicant. And I believe you can answer technical questions. Is that right? Splendid. I'm sure we'll have some of those. Oop. And you also have up to 3 minutes when you're ready, and the microphone is turned on by.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning. My name is Jonathan, and I'm the Head of Development for Grenergy. Firstly, I'd like to thank your case officer for their thorough and balanced report. We've welcomed the level of detail, engagement and care taken in reaching their recommendation. As you'll now be aware, battery energy storage systems are pivotal in delivering clean, reliable and affordable electricity. They store excess energy from intermittent renewables such as wind and solar and release it when demand rises. In 2025, the UK spent over £1.5 billion curtailing wind energy. We paid to turn off turbines because the energy couldn't be used at the time and fossil fuel plants had to be switched on instead. Geopolitical events such as the current conflict in Iran and previously the invasion of Ukraine remind us just how exposed we are to international volatility, which can lead to energy prices soaring. Ensuring we capture all available domestic energy and reduce reliance on imports has never been more important for a resilient and secure energy system. Whilst the need for energy storage can be well understood and is supported by government bodies, industry regulators and national planning policy, the primary challenge in development lies not in the principle of the technology itself, but in identifying suitable locations. Utility-scale renewable energy projects such as this must connect into viable grid points, which significantly limits where they can be sited. These connections typically occur at major substations such as Botley Wood, where the national network steps down to the local distribution network. Developers must then find commercially available land close enough to these substations and free from planning, environmental or practical constraints. Renewable developments also typically require large open land, limiting sites further to undeveloped countryside locations. The application you are considering is for this much needed technology and is supported by a comprehensive set of assessments demonstrating no significant social nuisance or adverse environmental impact. This is reflected in the absence of objections from any statutory consultee and in your case officer's recommendation. On safety, the batteries use technology similar to that in phones, laptops and electric vehicles. Sites are heavily regulated and incorporate robust measures to prevent, detect and suppress thermal events, resulting in extremely low failure rates. We've consulted Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service and will continue to work with them through construction and operation. In conclusion, this proposal delivers a technology that is urgently needed to support a clean, resilient energy system. It aligns with local and national policy and is demonstrated to have no significant social or environmental impact. And we respectfully ask that you support your officer's recommendation. And as you say, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. Members, questions of clarification for the applicant. Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have two questions. One, I wonder, Ms. Cooper, if you could give a summary of the noise profile of the storage units to try and explain what level of noise would be expected in the surrounding area. And two, particularly in light of the Glasgow station fire this week, where small batteries that size caused a huge fire, initiated probably by an external source. What variation in temperature will affect one of your battery storage units being in such close proximity?
Thank you, Councillor. So taking your first question, in terms of the noise from these battery units, we've modelled them at 65 decibels at 1 metre. That is what they operate on a 100% fan speed. And then typically how a battery will work is it's similar to the fan in your laptop. It will run faster and louder at higher temperatures and quieter at lower temperatures. So these batteries are tested in the Nevada desert, where they can go up to sort of plus 50 degrees Celsius. Typically an evening in Hampshire, we're not going to be seeing 50 degrees. So the modelling assumptions we've been provided with by the suppliers accurately reflects that in the evenings they would be running a lot slower and a lot quieter. So yeah, the noise modelling is based on, we effectively reach out to noise consultants, we'll give them the specifications for our battery units and they will model the site and they will tell us if we need any acoustic mitigation, of which an acoustic barrier has been recommended due to the property to the north. And then that is consulted with the environmental health officer, who they challenged us on some of the aspects of the query and then ultimately they were satisfied, as the case officer has alluded to. Did that accurately answer your first question? Okay, fantastic. In terms of the fire, yes, I'm aware of this Glasgow fire. I believe it was a vape shop, wasn't it? And so a very different industry, but absolutely fire safety on battery energy storage sites is taken very seriously. The sites are heavily regulated, as I pointed to. It's governed typically outside the planning sphere. The Health and Safety Executive will oversee these types of developments. The regulations, I've noted down a couple of the ones here. We have the construction design and management regulations. There's control of hazardous substances regulations. We have electrical equipment safety regulations. There's fire safety regulations. So the sites are heavily regulated. We have national guidance to adhere to, and then we employ specialist contractors who called DMV, and they provide us expertise on utility scale fire safety for these types of sites. They have done fire safety testing on battery units very similar to that we're proposing, and they've demonstrated that units at a distance of 5 centimetres apart, when they have induced a thermal runaway event, that fire has not propagated to the next unit. So in terms of the temperatures they could sustain, that battery unit, well, the fact is they had a fire 5 centimetres away from another unit and that fire did not spread. In terms of what temperature that fire was, I don't have those figures in front of me. But it does show that these units are heavily tested to make sure that this event is captured. Is that satisfactory, Councillor? Thank you. Councillor Laming.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. How far is it to the nearest house?
I have here 160 metres to the closest property to the north.
I think that's a question for the officer, Councillor.
Yeah,
Laming,
I'll
if you could say
bring it up again. The second question is, when do you expect to be connecting to the grid? Because at one place we see that it's 2038. The other one is that it's fast tracked. But what is the realistic time?
So in terms of the connection date, as the case officer was explaining, the way connections used to work is everybody, it was a free-for-all to get connections
No, I
into the
appreciate
grid
it.
network. But now they have changed it, which is fantastic for the industry, where only projects which have consent, among a number of other factors, get accelerated their connection. So when we have our hopefully consent in place for this scheme, we can reapproach National Grid to say we have a ready to build project. When can we connect this? That is effectively how the process works. And then it will be up to them to confirm exactly what the date is. But we have already seen a site in the West Midlands which had a 2034 connection date. And as of a couple of weeks ago, we've now been told that that has a 2028 connection date. So we've already seen schemes across the country which are being accelerated because there are other connections in the queue that were not progressing.
Yeah, but does this substation you're connecting to have the capacity to accept a connection, or has it got to be rebuilt?
At the time that we were applying for the connection, we were told that it had the capacity to accommodate our connection. However, through the grid reforms, they'll be reassessing that. Unfortunately, that's all I could comment on at this stage. I suspect they would only accelerate our connection if there was capacity for this connection.
So we've got a lot of ifs and buts.
Unfortunately, that is the industry at the moment. That is how the grid connections process works. I wish the two ran in tandem, where your grid connection and planning could be correlated. However, we have two very different bodies trying to work together to try and deliver these schemes. And that is the challenge. We're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, if you like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White.
There's some conflicting suggestions in the report about the life of the batteries, so that it's very different the number of years that these batteries last. So I just wonder if you could confirm what that likely is and if there's a plan for the complete replacement of them within the 35 years.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So the industry standard for these types of units, the degradation typically occurs between 15 to 20 years, and that depends on the number of cycles per day that the battery will operate in, and the different ways the battery can operate. So there's a lot of uncertainty about exactly what period it is between them, but we're already seeing other types of technology in the industry, such as solar panels, degrading a lot slower than people were originally anticipating. So our expertise suggests between 15 and 20 years. What that would involve at the point which battery unit would need to be swapped out is you could go into the container and you'd be able to swap out the individual cells, as opposed to having to come in with significant vehicles to completely remove the container and bring another one back. So thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I had one question in regards to audible alarms, and I know that would be sort of conditions in regards to this, but just wanted to, in regards to the Scouts comment on the planning portal in regards to the request for an audible alarm, and just confirming that will be in place should there be a fire.
That's correct, Councillor. Yes, we will.
Good. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the light soil due to be motion sensitive. Would they be triggered by animals?
It's interesting. We were asked this question by the case officer as well. So our site should be completely secure for any wildlife to come in, being a high voltage electrical compound. So if we did have wildlife in the site, it would be quite a significant issue. A small animal would not trigger it, for instance, like a bird flying underneath it, but a large animal would. But our sites are secure, so that should not be happening. And if that has happened, we have an emergency scenario which needs to be dealt with. So thank you.
Any more questions for the developer? No? Great. Thank you very much indeed for your help. If you could like to return to your seat. Okay, Nicola, do you want to talk about any of those issues before we come to members' questions?
Only really the within the officer's report, the proximity to the nearest dwelling is 100 metres I've identified, but that's from the red line. So I'm assuming that the developer is saying 160 from his actual.
And the noise creating
from the sort of the hard standing in the developed area.
Okay, so 100 metres from the fence.
Yeah.
From the red line
area. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Oh, Councillor Godfrey.
A question about orientation. I haven't seen the location of the Scout camp on the maps. Could the officer point out where it is?
Good question. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a photograph here. Oops, no. So it's within the wooded area between the Ash storage farm and the Red Line area.
Is that where the cursor is?
So well, it's, if you can see the Ash storage farm here, so it's in the wooded area to the south of the it's within the woods. I don't know exactly where they camp, but they're kind of camping generally within the woods. In that, the access to it is approximately where you see the H Fairham is the entrance.
All right, Councillor Godfrey. Okay. So you're ready for questions. So members' questions, and we'll take questions on the whole report, but please do indicate which page you're talking about. Councillor White.
So apologies if I misunderstood, but earlier in your presentation, are you saying that the batteries as planned are too close together than what's recommended? And you mentioned about further assessments could cover that in a condition. Could you just clarify?
Yes, of course, Councillor White. So the batteries are, as described by in the report, the units are as close as about 30 centimetres apart from each other. The document, which has been referred to, the National Fire Chiefs Council, does have a figure of 0.9 metres separation distance. But in that document then refers back to the technical guidance, I think it's the NF5 technical guidance document, which then refers also to the testing document, the testing procedure. In the technical document, I think it's section 9.4.2, it then says if there is you may have batteries that are closer to battery units that are closer to each other than the 0.9 if you are in accordance with the various measures that they say in the technical document and this particular UL testing. It's kind of like ISO testing, but it's for specialist battery. So the National Fire Chiefs Council report says, yes, this 0.9 metres, but you must take that report in its full context. You must take it as a whole. So going back to the original report, you can see that there is absolutely scope to bring things closer, providing that you are doing the assessment as appropriate. A reference to the condition, yes, within the condition, which is condition 7, I think. One of the sections within the condition, which I am now looking at.
Can you give us the page number?
My pages are not the same.
So I think on our thingies it's page
Condition 7. It's on page 5 of the it's on
55. Page 55.
But it's also on page 5 of the update sheet, which might also be useful. Thank you. But it also says that a comprehensive review of the space between units in line with the UL 9540A testing information to establish whether there is potential for fire to spread between units. So that was a specific point identified by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire Service when we consulted them, and so that's been included, and that's separate to the points which are brought in from the new guidance. Does that answer your question?
It's all very technical, isn't it? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Aaron, please.
Thank you, Chair. The two things that sort of worry me most are the noise issue and the safety issue. On the noise, I can see that quite a lot of thought has gone into this to minimise the noise, but I'm just thinking of that property, or the nearest property, which we know is well away, but nevertheless, I'm thinking of a sort of very hot Sunday afternoon. How do we know? Nobody really knows how well these noise mitigation measures will work and so on. But we can't guarantee that they won't be able to hear something on a hot day when the things are having to be cooled quite substantially. Is that, we just don't know? Is that the right answer to that?
So, as I mentioned previously, the Environmental Health Officers has reviewed it and interrogated that report in quite a lot of detail and got additional information back. They have they have no objection, subject to two particular conditions being in place. They're conditions 3 and condition 14 of the on the sheet, and they're shown. One of which requires that the noise levels produced do not exceed the levels stated within the report provided, and the other is so full details are provided, and that they should not exceed the noise levels detailed within the report submitted. And also condition 14, which is and that's on page 6 of the update sheet. I think no, yes. That a noise validation report demonstrating compliance with the noise criteria shall be submitted to before the approved development is brought into use. So officers are satisfied that enough measures and checks are put in place to ensure that what the applicant has said will happen, and that we can then check that it is happening. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
With the microphone on, please, Councillor Aaron.
Right, so we heard from one of our speakers that no specific site risk assessment had been done, and I know that it's all been approved, but is that something that should have been done, or that wasn't considered necessary because of all the organisations who had approved the various aspects of it? Or could you just sort of explain why that could be a problem or not?
Well, the applicant has provided the safety plan, which I will just scroll to quickly. No, I've gone past it. Sorry. And then we consulted in detail. Well, we consulted with the fire rescue, and the information that they reviewed all the information that was provided by the applicant, including this plan, and identified a condition that they had raised no objection to what was proposed, subject to that condition, which we have then expanded in quite a bit of detail, and the applicant has accepted the revised, the expanded condition, and that condition relates to information requirements set out within the National Fire Chiefs Council. It's not uncommon for more detailed information to be provided at condition stage. Inspectors have, on a number of occasions, accepted that is acceptable. So I think, given that we have no objection from the fire chief, the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, and that we have the capacity to have this very detailed condition, which is the pre-commencement condition, officers are satisfied that we have addressed it as far as we are able to.
Thank you.
Councillor Godfrey, you have a question?
Thank you. Does this development qualify as a renewable energy facility, which would allow for retention of 100% of business rates on the built facility by the local authority?
I do not know the answer to that question, I'm afraid.
Well, I think I'm grateful we can establish that, because
Councillor, how is it relevant though to your decision as a planning authority? Because irrespective of it's business rateable or not, is that a material consideration?
yes, because it is I was going to use that as confirmation that this is a justification for building in the countryside as a renewable energy component.
Councillor, I think you and I both know that's probably quite a stretch for a reason for refusal. So I would probably recommend to the committee that that's probably not relevant in this particular instance.
There is, in terms of renewable and low energy, the government's PPG on renewable energy and low carbon energy does specifically include battery storage within that PPG. So so as such, officers satisfied that it comes under the heading of low carbon development.
Yes, Councillor Godfrey.
Well, I didn't think I'd need to ask, why does this development need to be in the countryside?
Yeah, I mean, that is covered in the report. We have a number of policies that are referred to development in the countryside. I mean, obviously the standard one is MTRA4, but also with particular regard to low carbon and renewable energy development, we have existing policy CP12 within the existing current local plan, and within the emerging local plan we have policy CN5. Both of these are permissive policies and relate and refer to energy, renewable energy and low carbon development, and says that the council will support them subject to meeting certain criteria in relation to landscape heritage and so on. Policy MTRA4 does include a section relating to operational development, but the principal policies on this really would be policy CN5, emerging policy CN5 and current policy CP12. Does that answer your question? And I mean,
to your satisfaction, not to mine.
well, sorry, well, in terms of there is also the element of finding a site and the existence of the ability to locate a site, and sometimes they are located in the countryside, but policies do allow for development in the countryside of this type.
I think it is clear in the report, Councillor Godfrey, but as always, you know, we have to balance, you know, planning is a balance. And sorry, Councillor White, were you the next question, please? Thank you.
It kind of leads on from that about the reasons for justification in the countryside. On page 28, it mentions about contributing to the regularisation of the energy generated at nearby renewable energy schemes. So I'm not really clear what that means. So if you could just clarify that. Page 28.
If you just give me a second just to find the right paragraph, thank you.
Second paragraph down.
So there are other energy schemes in the vicinity, including the solar farm at on the other side of the railway line. Solar, as you are fully aware, generates electricity during the day and not during the night, and can but perhaps there may be more need, perhaps during different times when solar may not be generating. So this allows the energy generation, which I believe also goes into Botley Wood substation, to then be captured at and retained for usage when solar isn't generating. Thank you.
Councillor Small.
Thank you. Mine's about the landscaping. I just want some clarification. I might be reading it wrong or not interpreting it properly. It says about the landscaping plan, approved details should be carried out before the development is brought into use or in accordance with the programme. Does that mean that the connection date brought into use, or is that when it's established?
That would be the first generation, not first generation since generating, but the first, as you say, the first when it's able to connect.
So does that mean that there would be could possibly be no landscaping until the point it's connected? I'm just a bit concerned that it's going to look a bit ugly if there's no landscaping.
No, that is actually a sensible point. Thank you.
I think we need to.
That sounded rude. I didn't mean that to be rude.
No, I
think we need to look at the conditions and make sure that the landscaping is in place when the building is complete, and not necessarily when it connects up.
Yes, that would be.
You're raising that, Councillor Small. Can you switch off your mic? Thank you. Councillor Godfrey, you have another question?
Please. On page 37 of the report, it mentions that there's an expectation of noise level being 45 decibels at 10 meters. In the conditions, the there are no precise limits on the noise level specified, which would seem to be a sensible approach to take for variable noise levels. What are the noise levels that this facility will be limited to at during a day and during a night?
So your point about the specific noise levels in the condition is a good one, and it was with the update sheet has included a section to ensure that the noise levels generated do not exceed the noise levels that are detailed within the report submitted. On the basis of those levels and the mitigation, the environmental health officers were happy that the noise levels would not exceed appropriate levels at nearby properties.
What does that mean? And what's that mean to at 160 meters? Will they ever be able to hear it? If they do, what enforcement action can be taken?
I don't have the noise report in front of me. My question.
Anybody affected by noise can also, of course, report regularly to environmental health if it's a concern. They can.
I'm grateful for that. But
And ask
the
for
environmental health, having had the long course with Mr. Tidridge on noise, I know that the specific noise levels have to be clearly stated within a planning application, planning permission, for them to be enforceable.
So the noise levels are in the report that was submitted. That's the noise levels that would be required to be no higher generated by the BESS units, by the inverters, and by the 132 kV substation. Those have been identified within the report, and the condition has been revised to refer back to those particular sections of that report. The noise levels then dissipated in the environment has been modelled, and the acoustic fence has been proposed, the height of which was raised at the instigation of our environmental health officers. And their review has assessed that the noise levels at neighbour properties would not exceed acceptable levels.
Madam Chair, I've got the actual noise report in front of me, so that the proposed condition in the update sheet. So you'll see it on the update sheet, page 4, amendment to conditions 3. No development shall take place until full details of the BESS unit, inverter and substation specs have been submitted to the LPA and have been approved in writing. These details should clarify the height above ground level and sound power levels of any noise sources within the proposed development, and shall not exceed the noise levels detailed within sections 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4 of the 24 acoustic noise assessment dated 29th of November 2024. I have that noise acoustic report in front of me. So paragraphs 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4 of the 24 acoustics noise assessment say as follows, Councillor. The proposed battery storage containers are MC cube with the specification number in brackets, which I won't read out. Units supplied by BYD. The sound pressure level stated in the manufacturer's noise report is 65 decibels at 1 metre per BESS unit, which results in a sound power level of 86 dBA. The calculated octave band sound power levels are shown in table 3. So 5.2 in that particular paragraph then has a table with the different hertz levels. 63 hertz at 96, 125 hertz at 96, 250 hertz at 85, 500 hertz at 84, 1 kilohertz at 82, 2 kilohertz at 77, 4 kilohertz at 77, 8 kilohertz at 72, dBA 86. That's table 3 octave band sound power levels. Paragraph 5.3, to which the condition refers to, says as follows. The proposed inverter units are 3-power HVC series sun storage manufactured by Ingecon. The sound pressure level stated by the manufacturer for one of these units is 57 decibels at 10 meters, which results in a sound power level of 89 decibels at 100% duty. 24 Acoustics has been advised by Grenergy Renewables that the inverters will operate at 50% duty during the night time, with a sound pressure level at 50% duty of 45 decibels at 10 meter per unit, which results in a sound power level of 77 decibels. The calculated octave band sound power levels are shown in table 4. Then follows a detailed table. Do you want me to read that table out, members?
I think we've got the gist of it, actually. Thank you very much, Mr. Lucas. So it's all in the report, and that's conditioned. So if the sound levels are higher than that, then we can ask enforcement to take action.
So previous planning commissions have made it possible for the sound levels to be measured from the edge of the permitted the application site, not on the site. These measurements could only be done next to the unit, because they've got to be measured at 1 meter.
No, that's incorrect, Councillor. So paragraph 5.2 was at one meter. Paragraph 5.3 was at 10 meters per unit. The condition also refers to paragraph 5.4, which, if you wanted me to go on and read that also, that says 55 decibels at 10 meters, which results in a sound power level of 89 dBA. So there's difference, 1 meter and 10 meters from what I can see. I must admit I've only just read the report, obviously in light of the councillor's question, so I don't know the full context.
And 10 meters is a long way from the red line, inside the fence. What is it that the scouts, the residents nearby, anyone who is walking along outside the red line should be able to hear as a maximum?
Nicola? I would need to look at the report. I don't know in front off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
Our environmental health officer has been asked about this.
Yes, absolutely. Our environmental health officers looked at it. They've had conversation with the applicant and their noise consultants, which provided information, and they have. So I had a chat with the environmental health officer yesterday. We discussed the correspondence that they'd had with the applicant. The information, additional information was provided, and the officers were saying that subject to the conditions, which to ensure that the information, that the noise to be generated was then the mitigation, if they can achieve the noise generated that they say they're going to, the mitigation would be effective. So that was why they needed those particular conditions in, and the officer I spoke to yesterday was satisfied with that, provided those conditions were in place. I'm not a noise specialist, I'm afraid.
So we have to rely on our officers, our experts in this field, who tell us that the mitigation that is proposed and conditioned will deal with any concerns.
So,
Councillor Godfrey.
there are two questions that arise then. One, how will enforcement be able to measure or trigger an enforcement investigation without gaining access to a secure site? If there are complaints, and I suspect there will be. And secondly, what is the maximum noise, additional noise level that is acceptable before it impacts on the fauna in the area, particularly the large number of bats in the woodland adjacent to the site, which rely on the acoustic environment. If there is a significant increase in noise, when the bats are going to be disturbed outside the red line, which is why I ask, what is the noise, maximum noise and permitted at the red line?
So, Councillor, I think that it would be wise if we read the statutory consultee comment. So this is the comment coming from Environmental Health, logged on the 17th of April 2025. The officer consulted was Phil Tidridge in the Environmental Health Public Protection team. Thank you for your additional consultation. I've now reviewed the extra documentation, including the letter report from 24 Acoustics and the revised site plans relating to an increase in the height and the extent of the proposed acoustic barrier around the sites. I consider that this information has now provided the requested additional clarification. I therefore have no remaining concerns from a noise amenity impact regarding human receptors. Human receptors is your key point you're making there, Councillor. As the noise is predicted to increase the immediate background noise levels, and in my view is of a different acoustic character, there will be some potential tranquility impacts, but these are not covered in this particular response. It is noted that the final specification of the BESS units has not been finalised due to the speed of technological change. It is therefore recommended that a suitable planning condition is included, requiring before construction commences that full details of these units are submitted for approval by the LPA. This will ensure that the noise levels assumed in the 24 acoustic reports are comparable or less, and that the height of the noise sources within the BESS units is no greater than that modelled within the acoustic report, i.e. 1.5 metres. Significant increases in this height could impact upon the effectiveness of the proposed 3.5 metre acoustic barrier. In addition, modelling of all the proposed units has inherent errors, so you may wish to give consideration to conditions requiring noise validation reports to be submitted, and measured noise levels at the modelled sensitive receptors are at a lower than that predicted. If appropriate, I'm happy to discuss the further wording of any such conditions. So his point about the swift technological change is what we see in page 4 and 5 of proposed condition 3, if you're minded to approve, members. The parts about any replacement equipment required shall not be installed until full specs have been submitted to and improved in writing by the LPA. So that particular addition captured the point of your statutory consultee here. And members, it goes without saying the usual caveats that all statutory consultees you should give great weight to unless there are cogent and compelling reasons to suggest otherwise, as the case law suggests.
While I accept particularly Mr. Tidridge's view, having had long discussion with him on the subject, that human receptors will not be, are unlikely to be affected by the proposed solution. The long discussion over the life of this application on the presence or otherwise of bats on and around the site does lead me to express concern over the impact of noise on the large background population in the woodland and just outside the red line.
I'm sure the officer will be able to deal with any ecological concerns, or if ecology were consulted at all. If we're shifting now from human receptors to bats, then I'm have to pass over to the planning officer.
Yeah, well, the ecologist, our internal ecologist and natural England were consulted and didn't raise concerns with regard to bats other than lighting, and the glare shields to the south and the east are proposed. As I understand it, the fans are the human hearing sort of range and may not necessarily be affecting bats with a different hearing range, but that I'm afraid I'm not able to answer that particular question. But we didn't have an objection from our ecology colleagues on bat hearing noise to bats.
So no objections. Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. On conditions, I have a question. On condition 1, we're saying that work must be started within 3 years, but that could happen without them having a grid connection. So can we look at changing the condition to they cannot start work until they have a guaranteed grid connection?
I don't think so, Councillor Laming, but I will ask the officers.
No, that's the statutory condition. I'm not able to change that.
Statutory condition, Councillor Laming. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask potentially some advice in regards to the update sheet on page 2, in regards to the officer note at the bottom, regarding the recent appeal decisions regarding the condition over fire safety. Just some information, if you had any, in regards to that.
I did anticipate this would come up. So in the background, you probably saw me searching appeal decisions or looking at similar instances around the country. I've got 2 that I've managed to locate. The first was determined by the Inspectorate on the 21st of October in 2025. This is land on the southeast of Medlock Road, Failsworth in Manchester. Dealing with fire safety here, the inspector said, the officer report makes no mention of any fire safety matters, and I have no information before me from the Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service, albeit that they are not a statutory consultee. However, the appellant's outlined battery safety management plan details how the best design and operation demonstrates general compliance with the relevant National Fire Chief Council's advice. There will be a water tank and fire hydrant provided, much like the scheme before you today. I believe there's 2 hydrants located. And typical control measures for unit specification, construction and maintenance are identified. The best would build on best practice and lessons learned from past fire safety incidents. Other legislative regimes would provide further control. He goes on, although none was suggested by the council, it's commonplace for best approvals to include conditions. So much like what you see, I believe is condition 7 in this instance, to require further detailed battery safety management plan and emergency response plan, following confirmation of final equipment specification. So note the difference here between the detail compared to what will be advanced as the schemes coming forwards to discharge conditions. As such, by imposing these conditions, further approval on fire safety matters would be required following consultation with relevant parties, including the fire service, which would provide additional assurance at that stage. I therefore find that matters of fire safety have been satisfactorily addressed. 2 paragraphs. The inspector disposed of final safety concerns, despite not having consulted the Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service. The second appeal I referred to is on the 12th of November of 2025, land north of Styles Close in Froome, Somerset, so not far. In that particular appeal, the inspector said at paragraphs 28 to 30 as follows. It's been suggested the proposal would not adhere to the control of major accident hazard regulations. This is not something for me to determine within the context of this appeal. In any event, paragraph 201 of the NPPF explains that the focus of planning policies is to consider whether a proposal is an acceptable use of land, rather than control processes or emissions subject to pollution control regimes. For example, the DSFRS, I assume that's the Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service, has referred to its enforcement powers under the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005 and the need to adhere to the building regs. Government guidance also outlines health and safety procedures and standards, including risk assessments. Planning decisions should assume that these regimes will operate effectively. He then goes on into further paragraphs, which I don't need to comment upon. But those are 2 appeals I found during the live field debate.
Thank you very much, very clear. Could I ask about the cumulative impact of all these? I mean, we've seen through this committee quite a lot of solar farm applications off Titchfield Lane, and now this battery array. I know it's addressed in the report, but the parish councillor was concerned that that if all these new developments happen simultaneously, it would cause absolute chaos on the roads, despite the best efforts of our traffic management and construction management plans. Can you just address that, please?
So cumulative impact, not in terms of visual impact, but in terms of highway.
Both, in
Okay.
fact.
Well, in terms of visual impact, this particular application, so a cumulative assessment was produced by the adjacent solar farm, which would consider this the impact of this site also. This identified that there would be limited cumulative visual impact, with limited indivisibility, primarily from upstairs rooms of residential properties. In terms, our landscape officer doesn't think there'll be a great deal of visual impact or intervisibility for this site and the adjacent site, particularly in terms of viewpoints from publicly available viewpoints, so for public rights of way. There may be potentially fleeting views from the road as one passes, as the new access is formed, particularly before the new vegetation and landscaping has had a chance to mature. So visibility wise, limited intervisibility, primarily because of the topography and the existing ancient woodland surrounding and the intervening railway line. I mean, in terms of the highways, we are guided by our colleagues, the statutory consultees at Hampshire County Council as Highways Authority. They have reviewed the submitted construction traffic management plan and, you know, raised no concerns, because we have that at predetermination stage. Often we have that at condition stage, but they've reviewed the full construction transport plan and have identified no problems with it. I'm guided by them on highways.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any more questions? Councillor Williams.
It was just a follow on actually in regards to Councillor Russ's question. Could we add an informative in suggesting that the developer speak with the solar developers to try and minimise any all at once impact regarding development? And then in regards to the other point that Councillor Small raised in regards to the landscaping, is that something that we need to formally adopt as a amended condition to ensure that that's there in its built form rather than grid connection form?
We normally say that we express the wish of that amended condition, and then it's subject to agreement with the chair at a later date when it's been written. If that's acceptable to members, we will ensure that that's included in the condition. As regards the other thing,
I'm happy to add an informative to the effect of what Councillor Williams has just identified. And as to the condition, then absolutely.
Again, and that can be agreed between us in due course.
Yes, of course.
The exact wording, but we know what he wants to say. Is that acceptable, members? Agreed. Good. Thank you. Right, so we now turn to debate, please. Yep. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's been quite a comprehensive interrogation in regards to this application. I know there is always some controversy over the battery storage schemes, so I think it's quite good that we've sort of thrashed out the details as much as possible in regards to this. I think there were two sort of main points that came up in regards to the questioning that we were all seeking a bit further sort of detail on. The first sort of being the noise impact, and the second being the safety in regards to fire. In regards to the noise impact, I appreciate you know, the points raised in regards to that, but we do have an enforceable condition on there, and there is no objection from environmental health, and with there being an enforceable condition on there, any nearby resident or scouts can raise an issue with environmental health if they are exceeding their noise, and that can be an enforceable condition put on. So I think if we were to reject it due to policy DM20 in regards to noise, I think that would be overturned by a planning inspectorate, because we are issuing an enforceable condition here. And then in regards to safety, I think the answer by Mr. Lucas was quite comprehensive in regards to the planning inspectorate appeals, regards to the condition over fire safety that has been added on there. It is, as mentioned, in regards to the technology coming along, quite possible that the sort of full technical specifications of the scheme could change, especially with a potential delay in the grid connection. And I think the condition in regards to fire safety would then cover that in regards to ensuring that there are proper procedures in place in regards to the fire. It is also in our emerging local plan, as mentioned in the report, in regards to policy CN5, which I think the Planning Inspectorate issued a modification when we were having our local plan examined in regards to fire safety, and allowing that condition to be in place for the planning authority, which would also be interrogated in regards to the fire service. So I think we have, on those two sort of major concerns that were raised, I don't think they could be reasons to refuse the application, because I think it would just be overturned on appeal by the Planning Inspectorate. So I'll be supporting the planning application with those conditions attached.
Thank you. Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is a very complex and difficult planning application. I do not support any unnecessary development in the countryside, and I don't believe that the case has been fully made within the officer's report for the development in the countryside, because if it's such a peaceful and quiet facility, why wouldn't you put it next to housing? Well, you wouldn't, because it's not quiet and it's not peaceful. It's an industrial unit, and for that reason, it's been pushed quite well away from most settlements. And so it goes in the countryside. It is near the connection point, and that makes a lot of sense to make it simple to be able to receive and send the electricity. If that is such a priority, which is not yet a proven case, I think it will become a necessary. But I am concerned still about the noise management. I very much welcome the additional safeguards with the conditions. I don't believe they are enforceable, but that is as much to do with personal experience as perhaps the words in front of us today. So I'm still struggling to think how why I would support this until more specific conditions for noise control were included.
Councillor Laney.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think this is a very excellent and comprehensive report that's been given to us today. We all know that we need to balance the grid, and that takes priority over everything else. However, I am extremely uncomfortable with giving planning permission to an installation that we have no date of when it could be connected to the grid. So we're hamstrung completely by government legislation, and I don't see how we can get around that. So I'm left with no alternative but to support this.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
I think that there's a desperate and critical need in this country to provide alternative sources of energy. And I will just refer you to the events of the last week to suggest why. And one of the reasons, I mean, the batteries are a very necessary adjunct to solar panels and so on. And I take the point that Councillor Godfrey's made about the noise, and he said obviously if it was quiet we put it next to a town. Well, there are other reasons why you might not want it next to a town, but I think it's very difficult to come up with the perfect site for these. It's a bit like a Venn diagram. You've got to have the connectivity, you've got to have a flat bit of ground, you've got to have access, etc., etc., and you've got to have where it has a relatively minor impact. So I think that it's as we often get with planning, it's the least worst case rather than the perfect silver bullet that we can all agree on. However, I think that I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Langford Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I understand the need for the selection of a site in the countryside. The reason is because of the fire risk, and that's why they can't locate it next to housing. And also this particular site is in close proximity to the connection point. I know that power is lost when it's transported over a significant distance. However, I am very concerned about the noise levels. We've heard about 65 decibels per at 1 metre per unit. What about the cumulative? It's not just one unit, there's more than one unit here. So what is the cumulative effect there? We don't know. I'm also concerned about a very large area of countryside, more than 2 hectares of countryside being lost. I am concerned about the cumulative impact of solar and battery storage infrastructure in this area. It seems to me that there is a focus in this particular area of industrialising the countryside around this area. But on the alternative side, I do appreciate the need for this kind of infrastructure. So I'm very undecided on this one, I'm afraid.
Okay, any more debate, members? Well, the time. Oh, Councillor Aaron.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, obviously, I share all those thoughts that Councillor Langford Smith, the necessity for it, but the sort of possible dangers of it, particularly noise and safety, as we've sort of discussed. But I think I am convinced that there is enough thinking about those issues, not just for this decision, but for making sure that all the conditions are met. And there seems to be some flexibility after the decision to get things right on those issues, although I agree we should take them very seriously. But on balance, I think I agree with Councillor Williams that enough has been done to meet the needs from both noise and safety. So I will be supporting the proposal. Thank you.
Good. So it's make your mind up time, folks. So this application is recommended for approval, and we have to take into consideration the amendments and updates on the update sheet to the conditions, and also the amended condition that's been verbally agreed, and the new informative regarding cumulative construction avoidance, which we've also agreed to add in and confirm the details of in due course. So with those amendments, as I've just described, this application is recommended for approval. So can I see all those in favour of approval, please? And those against? And any abstentions? Okay, so that application is approved. Thank you. We will now take a break until just around 11:15. Thank you. Okay, everybody, I think we'll return to the agenda now, if that's okay. So this morning's planning committee, we're now looking at item 7 on our agendas, which is the planning application for Brendan House Park Road in Winchester. And our presenting officer is Cameron Taylor. So over to you, Cameron.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this presentation is in relation to the Brendan House application, which seeks the part demolition conversion of an existing care home, which will see the conversion of the retained existing building of Brendan House to 3 residential dwellings, and then the erection of 5 additional dwellings within the remainder of the site.
And I just point out that we did have a formal site visit on the site yesterday morning, those of us who were able to. Thank you.
Here is the location plan of the site marked by the red outline, and within this I'll just highlight where the mouse is currently circling. That is Brendan House itself, which is to be retained, with the remainder of the footprint of the care home to be demolished. Followed by the site plan. Yes, the site plan. Again, Brendan House being retained and subdivided into 3 plots. The site itself has 2 existing accesses, one off the northeast corner, which will serve plots 1 and 2, with to the garages for them and addition and allocated parking, with the northwestern access, which is there currently, being retained, which then will provide access to plots 3 through to 8. And I'll also just highlight on this plan the garage to plot 3, which is also located within that the western access. And on this, there are a number of TPO trees within the site, so I'll just run through those quickly. Along the eastern boundary, we have a TPO area, which is this collection of trees there with the mouse circling. Just below that one is an additional TPO area. Then we have a TPO point, which is this tree, an additional TPO point at the southeastern boundary, another TPO area in the southwestern boundary, and there's an additional TPO point, but that one is located within the curtilage of Wisteria to the west of the site. Next, we have the block plan, which I'll just note this is on the original scheme because it had been an amended plan, which has relocated the garages to plots 4 and 5. However, I've included this because it includes the red outline, which allows you to see the siting of the proposed dwellings in relation to the existing wing of the care home to the south. Followed by an aerial photograph with the site marked by the yellow triangle. Again, I'll just highlight Brendan House up there just to the south of Park Road to be retained, and the remainder of the southern wing of the care home is to be demolished. Next, we have the Brendan House existing elevations. So the one which fronts Park Road is the bottom right, which is the north elevation. The historic frontage of Brendan House is the south elevation in the top right. Then you have both the side elevations, east and west on the left-hand side. Next, we have the elevations of proposed. The majority of the alterations take place on the east elevation, which will see the removal of an external staircase and the addition of changes in addition to the glazing fenestration to provide windows to the new rooms, along with some additional changes to the west elevation, which will see the addition of these 2 windows up in the top right-hand corner where the mouse currently is. And the north elevation will see some extension works to allow for additional residential space for plot 1. Next, we have the floor plans, the ground and first floor plans for Brendan House. And this is subdivided into 3 of the dwellings, with plot 1 being sort of the yellowy colour, which is at the top, which is along the northern boundary along Park Road. Plot 2 being green, which is in the southeastern corner of the property, but that will utilise the same access as plot 1, which is the northeastern access onto the site. And plot 3, the sort of light yellowy orange colour, which is to the southwest, which would utilise the northwestern access along with the additional dwellings to be erected. Then we have the second floor and roof plan. I will note plot 1 doesn't have any additional rooms in the roof space, but however plots 2 and 3 do, and all of these dwellings, plots 1, 2 and 3 are 3-bed. Followed by the plans and elevations for the proposed garages, plots 1, 2 and 3. Again, plots 1 and 2, these garages will be situated within the northeastern access, along with an allocated space for each plot, with the garage plot 3 being located along the access from the northwestern. Here we have a section along Park Road showing the showing the north elevation of Brendan House. It also shows the continuation of the brick boundary walk, which is proposed, along with the addition of a gated access to the northwestern access, which will include the vehicular access as well as pedestrian gate. And on the section to the left-hand side is the northeastern access, which we can see the 2 garages to plots 1 and 2 and the additional parking for those 2 plots. Next, we have the street view, which is looking towards the north elevation of Brendan House. So the primary selection of the building, which we can see here, will be to plot 1, where I'll just highlight this little section to the left-hand side of the photo will be to plot 2, along with this window here. The northwestern access is just to the right-hand side of this photo, and this closed board fence is to be replaced with a brick boundary wall, which continues down to the access for plots 1 and 2. Next, we have some photos looking towards the east elevation and the northeastern parking area, where we can see the east elevation of Brendan House along with the external staircase. And this is the existing northeastern parking, which is to be retained and altered to allow for the garages to plots 1 and 2, with the continuation of the brick boundary wall. Followed by some additional photos from within the site, again, just highlighting the east elevation with the existing external staircase to be removed and the closed board fence in the right-hand photo, which is to be replaced. The bottom right-hand photo, I'll just highlight, is looking towards the east elevation towards A Park Close, with the little brick structure there, which is that existing garage, which is currently within that access and parking area. Next are some photos which are looking towards west elevation from within the northwestern access, with the bottom left-hand photo looking towards towards the property of Wisteria, which is along to the west of the site itself, and then the bottom right-hand street view just expanding that photo further, so you can see the relationship between Wisteria and the access towards Brendan House itself. Followed by photos from within the site looking towards what was the historic frontage of Brendan House towards the south elevation, with the right-hand photo showing the connection between Brendan House and that southern care home wing. We now move on to the elevations to plot 4, which is located just to the south of Brendan House, which can be shown just by that little site plan there with the yellow triangle. The proposed entrance is to front the existing entrance to Brendan House with a coach house appearance. Next, move on to the floor plans, and this is proposed to be a 3-bed dwelling with bedrooms 2 and 3 utilising the dormer windows within the roof space of the building. Followed by the elevation to plot 5. This has an L-shaped approach to it in order for it to address the access to the west, which then curves round to then serve at plots 6 to 8. I would note that the entrance to plot number 5 is actually on the western elevation of the dwelling. Next, we have the floor plans to plot 5, which is a 2-bed dwelling. So just some additional photos look from within the siting of where those dwellings are to be located. The top left one is sort of looking towards the eastern boundary, but we can still see the front elevation of Brendan House. The top right is looking towards the south, towards the siting of plots 4. And then we've got the bottom left, which is looking along the side of the existing care home itself from within the little courtyard. And then the bottom right is from within the access, looking towards the siting location of plots 4 and 5 from the access. We then come to plot 6, which is located within the southwestern corner of the site. This is a 2.5-storey dwelling, which includes 2 dormer windows, one to the front and one to the side. So this is a 4-bed dwelling with one of the bedrooms within the roof space, and I'll note the side dormer, as shown on the roof plan in the bottom right, is to serve the landing and staircase access to that roof space, and the front dormer serves bedroom 3, with the roof light to the rear serving an ensuite. Next, we have the sections from plot 6 towards number 5 Southcote Road. So I'll highlight from the existing ridge height of Brendan Care Home itself, that existing section which runs along the southern boundary, to the new ridge height is measured to about 3.6 meters. From the rear of the elevation of plot 6 to number 5 is measured to about 24 meters. I'll highlight that from the furthest point, because plot 6 is set further into the site than where the location of the current care home is. It is at the furthest point, it is 3.9 meters away from the rear elevation of the existing care home, but at the nearest point, it is 2.8 meters. Next, we do have some photos which look towards the southwestern corner of the plot. And I'll just highlight the bottom right-hand one is looking from along the western elevation down this very narrow access path, which has a retaining wall looking towards the north. Next, we have some photos from neighbouring property. These are from number 5 Salcott Road towards the site. So the top left-hand photo is looking towards the southwestern corner, where we've got this tree which formed part within the TPO area. But I say that would be the location of plot number 6. And then the right-hand photo is now looking towards the shared boundary between number 5 and number 6, which would be more towards where plot 7 will be situated. Some additional photos. The top left is close towards where there's an existing opening within the shrubbery, which can just be seen there within the right-hand photo. And I'll note the bottom left and bottom right are taken at the first floor level. The bottom left one is looking towards the direction where plot 6 will be sited, and the bottom right-hand one is looking again along where we see the boundary between number 5 and number 6 to the location where plot 7 will be. Next, we have the elevations to plot number 7, which is the largest dwelling sited centrally within that row of 3 dwellings along the southern boundary. It's a 2.5-storey dwelling, similarly to plot 6. However, this one includes 2 dormer windows to the front elevation, along with roof lights to the rear. And I'll note the roof lights to the rear have been confirmed as high level at 1.8 metre at the lowest point. Followed by the floor plans, where I'll note at the first floor level, there are 2 side windows. However, these serve a bathroom and a dressing room on both the west and east elevation. Followed by the plot 7 sections, which this section goes from plot 7 to number 6 Salcott Road. As measured from the elevation here, it comes out to around 29 meters from rear elevation to rear elevation. There is a measurement. I've taken a measurement from the plot 7 to the rear of number 5, as number 5 itself is sited slightly closer towards the site, and that comes out to 23 meters. From the ridge height of the existing care home to the new ridge height of plot number 7, there's an increase of around 3.9 meters. Then we have some photos. The top left-hand one is looking from within the site towards the location of where these dwellings will be sited. The plot number 6 will be sited slightly to the right-hand side of the photo, with plot 7 centrally. Again, the top right-hand photo is looking towards the southeastern corner, and the bottom right-hand one, slightly smaller because that one's already popped up, is looking towards the southwest. There are some photos taken from within number 6 Salcott Road towards the site. So these are all taken at the ground floor level. So the one at the top left is taken from the patio door towards Brendan Care, where we can just about see the ridge height of the care home itself, just at the top over the hedging. The right-hand photo is just a bit closer, where we can see that line. The bottom left is looking towards the shared boundary with number 5 Salcott Road. Again, this is looking towards the siting of plot number 6. Number 7 we sited centrally, and then the bottom right-hand one is looking more towards the northeast. Well, just note this is the new dwelling of Limewood, with plot 8 being sited within this location. We have some additional photos you take from the first floor level from number 6 towards the site, which we can see the existing roof of the care home. Next, we come to the plot 8 elevations, where the dwelling itself from the front has the appearance of a 2-storey dwelling. However, given the topography change on the site to the rear, it does give a 3-storey appearance. Followed by the floor plans, in which we can see that the lower ground level itself doesn't project the full width of the dwelling towards the front. And I'll highlight that the side windows to the ground floor level and first floor level serve an ensuite on the ground floor level, and both en suites at the first floor level as well. Next, we get to the plot 8 sections. This goes from the sections at the top, this goes to Limewood, and I'll highlight that this dwelling just to the left-hand side of where Limewood is, that is number 6 Salcott Road, with the bottom ones looking towards Holly House. From the ground floor and first floor element of plot 8 to number 6 Salcott Road, this comes out to about 32.9 metres. From a similar location to Limewood, this comes out at 23. This comes out at 23 metres. Again, from the ground floor and first floor elevation, as there is a slight step in from the lower ground level. And from Holly House to plot 8 comes out to about 35 metres. While this section is useful as it does highlight the change in levels from the site towards Holly House. Next are the sections which shows plots 6, 7 and 8 together, which is how they will be read together should the proposal be approved. Again, just highlighting how plot 7 is the larger of the dwellings towards the southern elevation. Followed by some additional photos from plot 6 towards the site. Again, at ground floor level, where I can just highlight this location of plot 8, plot 7 will be within this area. And then we've got the top right-hand photo, which is again from the first floor level towards the site. Followed by photos from Holly House, where the left-hand photo is taken at the ground floor level from within the garden patio area. And then the middle and right-hand photo are taken at the first floor level, where we can see the ridge of the existing part of Brendan Care Home, where where plot 8 is to be situated. That concludes my presentation, with the officer recommendation being for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Now we turn to our public speakers, and the first is the objector, Ben Duxbury. Good morning, Mr. Duxbury. And you have up to 3 minutes from when you start speaking. The microphone is switched on by pressing the button on the base unit. And when you're ready, thank you. Oh, and please remember that at the end, the members may ask you questions of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm speaking on behalf of the neighbouring residents who back directly onto the rear of Brendan House site to the south, east and west. Firstly, we would like to emphasise that we're supportive of the scheme in general and the redevelopment of the Brendan Care wing to houses. However, our focus is purely on design of plots 6, 7 and 8. We strongly believe the existing proposals for these plots are excessive in height and massing, not from the front, but from the impact they have on the properties to the rear, and they're contrary to planning policy. On this basis, we ask that the application in its current form is refused and the designs for these plots revisited. There's been no attempt by the developer to meaningfully consult or reconsider their designs at any stage. We do not believe the planning officer's report is fair in the information it draws on or its conclusions, including on the level of concern and objections raised. For example, whilst the report concedes the proposed dwellings are substantial in scale and marginally proportionally too large for the plot, it then concludes that they're in keeping with the size and form of surrounding properties. However, this is simply not the case. All of the immediate neighbouring properties are 2-storey. The report also concludes that there is a generous separation to the site boundaries. However, again, this is not the case and hopefully validated by your visit yesterday. Indeed, the primary issue is that these properties are so close to the boundaries that their height will result in them towering over the existing hedge lines. They're going to dominate and result in a significant loss of privacy and extensive overlooking for the neighbouring properties. And for us, clear and direct lines of sight into the entire rear of our house and garden, including our main living spaces and key amenity areas. It will have an unacceptable adverse effect, and this is contrary to local planning policy, DM17, as also High Quality Places, SPD. We've had no opportunity to consult or influence the designs and received no reply to some alternative design proposals in our response. The developer relies on some very limited and often misleading or inaccurate profiles and sections. There's very little information about the site gradients and proposed groundworks, in particular to plot 8. There's no evidence that the developer has considered digging down, ideally at the lower ground level, which would significantly reduce the height impact of the new properties. This, combined with building 2-storey houses, with the first floors predominantly facing north or into the development, would address the majority of our concerns. We appreciate the developer will be seeking to achieve a scheme that maximises its profitability. However, that alone should not determine the outcome of the application. We urge you to assess this fairly and to protect our interests as those who will be directly impacted and to uphold local planning policy, which we believe has been either disregarded or downplayed here in respect to policy DM17 and high quality places SPD. In the alternative, and for completeness, if the application is to be granted in its existing form, we should be grateful if the planning conditions we have requested are implemented in full. These were detailed in a separate document, and in particular, we would like a say on the landscaping plan, and have a brick wall and fencing on the southern boundary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of your time. Members, do we have any questions of clarification? Sorry, you were just talking about a brick wall. Where did you want that?
Along the south boundary, so 5 Salcott Road and 6 Salcott Road, with fencing on top.
And what at the moment is proposed for that boundary, do we know?
It's just some hedging.
Just the existing hedging. Question of clarification, Councillor Godfrey?
Could you tell me what additional barriers between apart from fencing exists between 5 and 6 Salcott Road?
So 6 Salcott Road has a wire fence, and then it has hedging on our side, which is a beech hedge. And then on the other side is some scattered hedging, which is going to get removed by the developer. And then the plan is to put some kind of hedging there. The issue we have is the different levels. So there's a slope from left to right, which drops 2 meters, which means that it's very hard for just a fence to cover what we require. So hence why we were asking for a brick wall to get it up to a certain level, and then fencing on top, and that will mitigate the lower perspective. And then we would like some landscaping so that above the beech hedge, which is at the height that I can just about maintain it currently, we would like some landscaping, some mature landscaping and trees to obviously block out the direct lines of sight, which we're going to get exposed to. Number 5 has a fence at the moment, but the issue that they have is that when the landscaping gets removed on the care home site, they're going to get left with a lot of gaps, and hence get overlooked even more than they are now. So they equally would like some reassurances on terms of landscaping. The condition at the moment doesn't explicitly allow us a say in that. So we've had no opportunity to input on any of this.
Okay, thank you. We can raise that with the developer when it's there to come forward. Any more questions of clarification for the local resident? No, thank you very much indeed for your time. If you could switch off the microphone. Thank you. Lovely. The next speaker is the parish councillor, not the parish councillor, the ward councillor, Councillor Nathan Eve. Councillor Eve, you have up to 5 minutes. So over to you when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to members and officers and to the residents who've come across this morning to show the breadth of feeling on this proposal. I'm speaking today in opposition to the proposal as it currently stands. It's worth saying again up front that residents and I are supportive of the scheme in general and the principle of the site being redeveloped. However, there currently exists specific concern over the designs of plots 6, 7 and 8. Compared to the existing building, the proposal would be significantly higher, and for those properties which neighbour to the rear, it would be excessive in terms of overlook. Currently, residents do have a hedge line, however in winter this is of course a lot more sparse, and a taller building would overlook the bulk. Members will note from the photo in the presentation that the existing roof line already just about tops the hedging. In winter the cover is even less. For 6 Salcott Road, due to the layout of the house and garden, there would be direct lines of sight into the entire rear of the property, which again contains the dining room, kitchen and living room. Furthermore, the proposed first floor windows of plots 6 and 7 will overlook 5 Salcott Road, again with a clear sighted line into the garden and social parts of the house. Lawn End and Holly House will likewise lose the privacy of their gardens as a result of the proposals for plots 6 and 8. The existing Brendan Care wing is mainly single storey, with just one section extending to 2 storeys where the sloping terrain allows it. This wing postdates the Salcott dwellings and was clearly designed to avoid undue overlooking and the overbearing impact on the neighbouring properties. This is roughly where plot 8 is proposed. The proposal of 3-storey dwellings in a prominent position is a reasonable cause for concern for a loss of privacy for existing residents. Residents also have concern that there's not been enough of an attempt to meaningfully consult or reconsider designs. Residents received a single letter from the developer in early October 25 and promptly requested further information in regards to the rear elevation, building heights, massing and bedroom window position. However, to my understanding, received no further information prior to the submission of the application later that month. I share their concern that there's a lack of clarity in the submission, including limited information showing the site levels. There remains a lack of contextual information regarding existing residential properties. Residents would like to draw further attention to the proposed section BB in Appendix 4, which they believe does not accurately reflect the slopes between the property, namely that there is in fact a large drop in the slope along the boundary with 6 Alcott, dropping west to east by 2 metres. The loss of privacy and extensive overlooking is contrary to local planning policy in that proposal should not have an unacceptable adverse effect on neighbouring land or property, including through overlooking, loss of light or having an overbearing effect. The proposed new buildings will have direct lines of sight not only into the gardens but also living areas of neighbouring properties. The majority of residents and my own concerns could be accommodated if the proposed houses were reduced in height or were to face each other rather than existing residential buildings. The developer could also dig down and make use of the slope, as some of the existing buildings already do. I urge the committee not to support this proposal in its current form, but for completeness' sake, that if the application is to be granted at this stage, that the planning conditions requested earlier by residents are implemented in full. This includes a proper wall of fencing, mature landscaping of appropriate trees and hedging, in order to mitigate the effects of the development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eve. Any questions of clarification for our local councillor, please? Nope. Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Josie. Thank you, very clear. And finally, we come to the supporter, the developer, Mr. Chris Rees. Good morning, Mr. Rees. You know the routine. You have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. As noted within the committee report, the application before you today has been the subject of the Council's pre-application service, with engagement across the various different departments to inform the proposals. From the outset, there's been a clear preference from the Heritage team for Brendan House to be retained within it and its conversion to residential use, rejuvenating and supporting its longevity in Park Road. The removal of the linear extension to Brendan House allows for the setting of the retained house to be improved and the primary elevation to be brought into the public domain. As members will have noted from the site visit, these new dwellings sit predominantly on the footprint of the existing linear structure, with engagement from the tree officers providing further advice in respect of the distances to those retained trees. We've got a mixture of properties proposed today, all in line with policy, including 2 chalet bungalows located at plots 4 and 5. Architecturally, the proposal is classical in nature, reflecting the prevailing character of Brendan House in design and form, with each house having been designed for its specific plot in the absence of standard house types. Now, picking up on some of the comments that were raised, I personally wrote to all of the neighbours surrounding Brendan House, was invited to go and visit, which I did. Some neighbours had some feedback in terms of support, had feedback for further information, which was provided, and the application was submitted. You sometimes make changes at that stage, you sometimes don't. It's not a question of lack of engagement, it's just simply a difference of opinion. In respect of the relationship with the neighbouring properties, the conclusion of your officers at the pre-application stage was the separation distances were ample. While the new houses will be seen from neighbouring properties, houses can be seen from one another at present, which members would have seen yesterday, and which is not out of keeping in the context of this being in the centre of Winchester. Members will have noted from the committee papers that there is not a single objection from your consultees, with a number of neighbouring residents writing to support the plan application. Chair, in summary, I would respectfully ask that the members endorse the officer's recommendation and approve the application.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of clarification for the applicant? Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. We have this at most times we see you. We ask for level 5 on sustainability, and all we ever get is level 4. There's no sustainability on these properties that I can see. I cannot see any evidence of solar panels or battery storage or anything like that. Would you like to comment?
Of course, Councillor Lehman, the conditions put to us, and I've said before, with our air source heat pumps and our fabric first approach, we can hit that level 4 without the PV panels. However, on this occasion, we've got PV panels on each property. So we're going to sit between level 4 and level 5 quite comfortably. And the technology is improving year on year. So we'll exceed the condition that's been put forward.
Thank you. How are you going to progress from that? Because we asked for LETI standards in the next local plan. And we would like to see you achieve those now, if that's possible.
Our technical team monitors all of the new policies coming through, Councillor, and we, in consultation with the officers, we look at the conditions before we come to committee.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. The objectors and ward councillor mentioned in regards, I know there is a condition on landscaping. I was just wondering if you could just brief us on, we went there on the site visit yesterday. There is a lot of landscaping on both the Brendan Care side, but also the residents who are objecting side. Just what's going to happen specifically in regards to the landscaping on the Brendan Care side? I mean, are you going to sort of cut down before then implementing the landscaping plan, or will there be anything, any of the existing landscaping retained?
The intention is to retain. Be careful what you wish for with a brick wall, because you have to put footings in for that brick wall and remove a lot of vegetation to do so. It can have a counter effect. I've heard what's been said. I'm happy to speak to the neighbours regarding the landscaping scheme as it comes through. There's a landscaping condition which is proposed, so we have to go through that process with the officers. We can look at the different options in terms of the screening. It works both ways, of course. We will be selling these properties should it be approved in due course. So we want some really good screening on that boundary as well. I should just add, we have, as part of the process and in reading the comments, we did propose 2 extra mature trees within the rear garden as well of plot 7 to assist with the screening between, hence the updated landscaping plan, but that's been overtaken by the condition now.
Thank you. So you're happy to discuss further the landscaping and even possibly a brick wall if as you say that might have more damage on the existing verdant nature of those boundaries than anything else.
Certainly, more than happy to discuss. I certainly would not want a brick wall put in any wording of a condition, because I think that would be counterintuitive.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Williams again.
Sorry, it was specifically in regards to plot 7. So plot 7 is the only plot in regards to having windows in the roof. I know these have been mentioned and they are above the solar panels, and they are quite of a high height at 1.8 metres, as mentioned by our case officer. I'm quite content with the landing and the shower roof lights, but the bonus room, in regards to that, would you be willing to have it as a top opening only window, because this could easily be converted to a bedroom, and I think specifically there is a swimming pool that it may overlook. I mean, I'm over 1.8 metres by some number of centimetres, so my eyesight would be able to sort of see out through that window. So I was wondering if you would be able to sort of agree to that, or if not, whether we would be able to condition that specifically just on that one room, the bonus room, because the landing you're not going to be able to see out of at all, and the shower room you're not going to want people seeing in. So specifically on that bonus room window.
To allay some concern, but the answer is yes. We can look at that particular window in terms of its opening, but to allay your concern, of course, the window is on an angle, so that even if you stood above 1.8 metres, you can't look down onto the neighbouring property. You could only look through and across. So the option, or the intervisibility between that room and that garden will be extremely limited unless you're stood on something and looking at. But Councillor, to answer your question, yes is the answer.
Good. Any more questions of clarification for the developer? No, thank you very much, Mr. Rees. You may return to your seat. Okay. So Cameron, anything that you want to update us on following that?
There's nothing else I want to vote up there. I'd say just highlight the update sheet where I noted the change to condition 2 for the plans, because that made reference to the block plan, which was for the original scheme. So I thought I'll just note that to just amend that so that doesn't form part of the application. Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Good. Members, questions on the report, please. Councillor White.
I think we mentioned it yesterday on the site visit about removing some of the permitted development rights on some of those properties on the southern boundary. What actual rights does that remove? I mean, it's mentions about restricting new glazing, but does it restrict other things? I think you mentioned dormer windows, and just to clarify what that actually covers, I think it's condition 8 and 9.
Yeah, so condition 8 removes permitted development rights. So class A typically relates to extensions, class B dormer windows, class C sort of roof lights or other changes to the roof slope. Class E is then sort of for outbuilding or other such within there. But then following on from that, there is condition 9, which is sort of to just ensure that there are no additional windows to the side elevations to plots 6, 7, or 8 without applying to the without applying to the local planning authority with planning permission. It's just to ensure there is no additional windows. Like with plot 8 towards Holly House, there is no additional windows at a first floor level, or which can be gone the roof, which can go in the roof space without planning permission.
Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you. I wonder if it also could guide me on the difference in planning terms between a study and a bonus room and a bedroom.
Madam Chair, there is no difference. You know, they're just simply worded as such on the plans. There's no planning difference between the use of those rooms.
Councillor Godfrey.
So we have before us a development of some very nice looking proposed houses, which are probably 3, 4 and 5 bedroom homes, possibly even a 6-bedroom home, which doesn't seem to meet the mix of houses required by our plans.
And we looked very carefully at this on our site visit, and I think it does comply with our planning regulations, but perhaps Cameron could tell us.
So yes, within our policy, it's sort of the majority of dwellings on the site should be of 2 and 3. Within this application, so the bottom 3 are classed as 4-bed dwellings, and then the remaining 5, yes, 5 are sort of 2 and 3 bed. There is 1 2-bed and 4. So yeah, I'll just confirm. Plot 5 is a 2-bed. Plot 4 is a 3-bed. Plots 1, 2 and 3 are 3 beds, and plots 6 to 8 are 4 beds. So that is the majority of the dwellings put forward in this application are 2 and 3-bed dwellings.
Could we go back to my previous question then?
Yes.
What's the difference then between a study and a bedroom? Because plot 5 has a study and 2 bedrooms, and they look remarkably like a 3-bedroom home. So I don't see a house that be marketed as a 2-bedroom home here.
Well, even if, say, plot 5 was to then become a 3-bed home, that still complies with policy because it says majority is 2 and 3-bed dwellings. And then likewise, plots 6 to 8, if any of they happen to have studies or bonus rooms, if they are then made as bedrooms, it would still fall because there are still the majority of the dwellings on the site would still be 2 and 3-bed. Well, sorry, 2 or 3-bed.
But they aren't. There are 6 4 and 5-bedroom homes and 2 3-bedroom homes.
Chair, if I may, we must look at the plans as they've been submitted and consider them on that basis. If they are shown to have bedrooms with a study, we must assume that they will be used as a study.
We've had this discussion before, I'm afraid, Councillor Godfrey, and people use rooms for all sorts of reasons. You could turn a dining room into a ground floor bedroom if you wanted to. You could use the garage for, whatever. We have to deal with the application that's in front of us, and that is the number of bedrooms that are presented to us, and our officers have told us that it comes within policy. So I'm afraid we have to accept that. It's up to you to decide if that should weigh in the balance and what the inspector would think of your argument. Councillor Laming.
Yeah, I'd like to go along this argument a little bit further because we've actually had properties built on, if I remember rightly, Crossways at Southdown, where we had on the plans study, and when the plots have been advertised, that has been classified as a bedroom. So I think we need to sort of understand what we're granting.
I'm not sure I can add anything further to what I've previously said, Chair.
I think you've made your considerations clear, your concerns clear, but as I say, we have to deal with the application that is in front of us. Any more questions on the report, members? We all had a very thorough site visit yesterday. I know Councillor Williams.
Yes, it was just a follow-up in regards to my question to the developer. Would it be reasonable on the bonus room to restrict its opening? I'm just thinking of the concerns raised by my neighbours, because there is a swimming pool that you know, that potentially it could look out on. I just really think sort of belt and braces. This could be, you know, a condition that would be proposed, but whether you think that would be reasonable.
The only comment I would make, Chair, is that the general permitted development order refers to a distance from floor level to sill as 1.7 being acceptable, and you could potentially do that under permitted development rights. I know in this case we would be looking to remove permitted development rights, but given that that 1.7 is the established distance, I wouldn't say that it was necessarily reasonable to ask for any further restrictions. But if members disagreed with that, then they could, of course, add that as a condition.
Well, we have done that before, I think, when we've been particularly concerned about overlooking the potential for. So I think members are agreed that we would like to see it as a top opening. We're not taking away the window, but we just make it a top opening window rather than a bottom opening window. Is that agreed, members? Councillor Godfrey.
1.8 metres is perfectly high enough, albeit Mr. Councillor Williams is a tall fellow, but his eyes are not at 1.8 metres. And even when he looked at where he to get up on tippy toes, he would not be able to see down onto the swimming pool or even into the house below. It would be extreme to change the style of a room, of a window.
Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. I accept what you're saying. Perhaps we can simply mention this in debate, and perhaps the developer can take account of the considerations of the committee, and not put it in the conditions, just for that reason. Let's do that. Okay. Any more questions? Otherwise, we'll move to debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I've written down quite a few notes in regards to this application, where I think the conditions do mitigate the many of the concerns raised. So specifically, just to mention actually the non-designated heritage asset, in regards to the retention of that, I think that's fantastic. You know, on our site visit yesterday, we saw, although obviously it is been converted obviously into a care home, it does have historic sort of value to the local area there. But what I wanted to speak on really is plots 6, 7 and 8. I'm really welcome condition 9 in regards to the no side windows in regards to all of those plots, but specifically plot 8 because of the elevation and how it would overlook the neighbour's property there on, I think, with the eastern side. And then conditions, condition 8 in regards to removing the permitted development rights, including the dormers, extensions and any further roof lights, I think is essential in regards to this aspect. I do still have concerns in regards to the landscaping plan, but I see that as conditioned, and I would obviously encourage the developer in excess of the landscaping plan, whether those 2 trees could be reconsidered to be planted alongside that landscaping plan. I do think it is a shame in regards to not adding the additional condition in regards to the bonus room window opening. It would have still allowed the window to be there, but would have restricted that direct look view out to mitigate any impacts in regards to the neighbour with the swimming pool there. I am still minded to support the scheme. I would really have preferred that additional condition, because I think it really would have sort of reassured not just the neighbouring residents, but any concerns in regards to if the landscaping in 5-10 years time had died back or had been removed, because we know those conditions are time limited. I think that would have really helped mitigate concerns from that. But overall, I'll be supporting the application.
Councillor, before you leave, did you want to propose that as a motion? If you have a seconder, then obviously the committee can vote upon the condition if you're minded to propose it as a motion.
I'll propose it if anybody would like to second it.
Is there any seconder to Councillor Williams' motion in relation to the condition? There is a seconder. Members, therefore, we will need a debate and a vote upon whether or not you're minded to condition the bonus room window.
Do we need debate? Let's just go to a vote, shall we? No, Councillor Langford-Smith. Proposal. Councillor Williams.
Proposal is for the on plot 7 for the bonus room only window to be top opening as a condition. I feel as though the other two windows, the landing, there's going to be far too much height to put a condition on that's enforceable. And again, with the shower window, I don't think that that will be an issue either. But it's just the bonus room window for that condition.
Councillor Langford-Smith, you want to speak in debate on that motion?
Yes, Chair, I'm just concerned with the top opening window. It means that if it's raining, the rain comes in. So it's not really terribly practical.
Thank you. Councillor Godfrey?
Yes, I find buildings which are balanced to be much more attractive. Buildings with odd windows in different styles look odd. And I believe that having one top opening window and two bottom opening windows would be unattractive, less attractive. I don't believe a top opening window in this instance is required, and would be an unnecessary restriction on the proposed development.
Councillor Small, do you want to speak in support of the motion?
Just think we're just trying to make, if we're going to pass this and approve it, we're trying to make the neighbours who've got reasonable concerns feel a bit more secure in what could possibly be built, and having a top opening window will give them that extra bit of protection. The developer didn't seem to have too much of an issue with it, so that's why I'm going to support Councillor Williams' motion.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll move to a vote on the proposal from Councillor Williams. So all those in favour of conditioning a top opening window in that extra room, please show. And those against? Oh, it can't have been 7 then. Can we do that again? All those in favour?
6.
And those against? Right, so that is approved. So that will be added in as a condition, please. Let's return to debate on the report, please. Any more debate? Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Williams in that I appreciate the protection and retention of the non-designated heritage asset. I also think that it's a good enhancement with the continuation of the brick walls and removal of the fencing, which does nothing for the building at all. The site visit was very, very helpful yesterday. I was struggling with the different heights on the plans, so to actually see it, I found very, very helpful. I noted whilst we were on the visit that Lawn End, the house that we visited first, actually has a Juliet balcony with a full-length door that overlooks all of the neighbours' gardens with a completely unobscured view. So whilst I appreciate that people don't like
other people looking into their properties, all of those properties are already overlooked by Lawn End. And I also appreciate that the suggestion was that we could condition the use of the rooms. I have experience of rooms being previously conditioned. They were conditioned as storage rooms only in the loft space. However, it was completely unenforceable, and they were sold later with those as being bedrooms. So I don't think that's enforceable. I'm minded to support the officer's recommendation on this. I think it's a very thorough report.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is quite a nice development. I think it retains Brendan House well. I am concerned with the overlooking. I am concerned with the bonus rooms being not designated as bedrooms as they should be, and I'm not sure why. And I'm really quite concerned that we keep on getting level 4 thrown at us when we're asking for level 5, and then the emerging plan we're asking for LETI standards. And it is important that we have energy conservation. So I'm in two minds about this, and I'm erring on the side of not being particularly enthralled with it.
Right. If there's no more debate, members, we go to the decision. So this application with its new condition and the update sheet note is recommended for approval. So can I see all those members in favour of approving this application, please? 7, 8. And those against? So that application is approved. Thank you very much. And we will shortly move on to item the next item on our agenda, now item 8. We just need to swap over the presenting officers. Thank you. Okay, members, we return to our agenda now. This is item number 8, land northeast of Park Place Pastoral Centre, Winchester Road in Wickham. And the application is presented to us by the case officer, Cameron Finch. So over to you, Cameron. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, so this is application land northeast of Park Place Pastoral Centre, erection of a classroom dome to serve a kindergarten which exists on this site. So we start with the location plan. So the site over here outlined in red. Just for your reference, the settlement boundary of Wickham does run along here at the edge of Cold Harbour Close. We then have the site forming part of a wider site which is used by the kindergarten at the moment, and then some dwellings along here, residential, that's it, just outside the settlement boundary, and then the main Winchester Road through Wickham is along here. So we have the existing and the proposed. So the classroom dome is sited centrally within the site over here. We then along here, both just on the boundary, just inside and also just outside, have an area of protected trees which sits along that northern boundary there. The access road to Park Place runs along the southern part of this site. We then have the aerials, so the star here is where the dome would be. You can see the existing polytunnel, which is in use by the kindergarten at the moment, and then the arrangement then of the dwellings down here. So this is 17 and 18 Cold Harbour Close, and then we have the neighbouring dwellings that sit along here as well. And then Park Place, which is the listed building, sits over here. So then we have the elevations and the floor plan. So it is a dome structure, measures up to, it says 4.99, so just shy of 5 meters tall in the central part of the radius. The diameter of it is 9.5 meters. So it's not shown on here, but the finish to this would be an olive green finish. So it is a geotile structure, and then that is covered then by the olive green covering. And you can see in here, you have the classroom space there, and then they're just providing 2 toilet pods off of that as well, which are indicated here. So we move on to photos. So we have photos just from the access up to Park Place, so the approach, so you can see the existing polytunnel. The classroom would sit beyond that, and then just an alternative as you get closer. So where the arrow is, the classroom would sit in that space. Then just some wider views of the site. So looking towards the classroom, then looking back from the direction of Park Place, so the west, and then a further shot there. So there's a small parking area here. This is the site. Just to give you some context of the relationship with the Grade 2 star listed building. So this is a closer shot just from the access. And then you can see here the corner of the site. So this is the very western corner of the site. And then looking towards, so you can see the listed building can just be glimpsed, but is effectively screened by the existing trees and vegetation there. And then our top photo here. So this is from the road along Cold Harbour Close. So looking to the northwest. So it would appear just over here. And this is the access road then looking east. Cold Harbour Close, the dwellings, the neighbouring dwellings sit here on the other side of these mature trees and shrubbery. And then that's the access road off towards Winchester Road. The recommendation is to approve this application. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we have Mr. Hudson, who wishes to object to this application. Mr. Hudson, good morning. You have up to 3 minutes. When you're ready, the microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. My objection to this planning application is that the building is being built on a meadow, which shouldn't really be built on, and especially shouldn't have a school built on it. The current school is owned by Mr. Woollyman and Mr. Shepherd under Kids Love Nature Limited. And this company already has school buildings with toilets and facilities next to Park Place. It has a large undercover poly structure already in the field and doesn't need another schoolroom. As it is for Kids for Nature, I would imagine that a structure which is a standard 1-story height and not a geodesic dome made from white plastic. I wrote this before. It actually said it was green plastic because I didn't see green written in it anywhere. And this would be much more sympathetic to the surroundings. The building that's proposed will look overbearing and not fit into the rural setting. A structure sympathetic to the surroundings would be more appropriate, such as a wooden English heritage building. As it is for kindergarten children, I'm wondering why it's necessary to have a building that's 4.99 meters high, which is about the height of this. It is unnecessarily overbearing in this environment. I'd also like to know what the arrangement for the toilet drainage is, as this was existing a meadow. Also, if there's additional parking available as it is an expansion of the school. Does this land have permission to run a business from it? To conclude, this application lacks information required for planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for Mr. Hudson? No. Thank you, Mary Tenziesi. Thank you. And we also have Councillor Lorraine Rapé again. You're having a busy morning, Councillor Rapé. And you also have up to 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
This application came to the parish in October 25, and due to lack of information, the parish objection was based on what could be read and seen when visited. Interestingly, almost 2 months later, a document was forwarded from Winchester Planning Department containing a detailed explanation of the classroom design and other related information produced for the applicant. The proposer claims that the dome shape of the classroom is in character with the locality. This is disputed. The design falls short, being adjacent to a Grade 2 star listed building. Paragraph 9 of the National Planning Policy Framework confirms that development should take local circumstances into account to reflect the character, needs and opportunities of each area. The site is located outside of the existing and proposed Wickham settlement. Again, that the country policies laid down apply, and only development appropriate to the countryside location should be permitted. The design is not appropriate nor sympathetic to the local character. It was previously, as quoted just now, used as a grazing field for horses. The NPPF paragraph 131 places great importance on having good design to add quality to the area. This classroom design may be considered good elsewhere, but not in this locality. It is modernistic and in fact would not be in keeping anywhere in the parish. The NPPF indicates design should be sympathetic to local character and history, reminding you it adjoins a Grade 2 listed building and the height being viewed by neighbours in the adjacent road. Also demonstrated that applicants should improve the economic conditions of the area. This is not demonstrated by the applicant. Paragraph 207 and 208 require a demonstration being of public benefit and should not be of private benefit. This development is a commercial concern. Interestingly, those who wrote to support the applicant listed just one person living in the parish, the remainder being from various distances, all outside of the ward. In visiting the site, TPO trees were identified. I'm pleased to say that some applications have recently come in to address what we considered a safety issue. And bearing in mind the children range from 9 months and with the oldest 5 years, it is questioned, as already stated, why the classroom is such a height, just being short of 5 meters tall. The design cannot be justified other than making it a design choice more than anything else. So the parish council asked for the application to be refused as it stands.
Thank you very much. Any questions of clarification, members? No, thank you very much. You may return to your seat. Thank you. And finally, we have 2 supporters, Emily Jeffries and Alex Shepherd. You have 3 minutes between you. Have you agreed how you're going to carve up? Okay, lovely. Right. Well, the timer will be on the screen, so you'll be able to. Over to you. Don't forget to switch on your microphones.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address the committee today. I trust members have received the briefing pack, which outlines the merits of this proposal. The proposed dome is modest in scale and limited visual impact due to it sitting within the paddock adjacent to the Pastoral Centre access road. It is enclosed by mature trees and planting, helping it to blend into the surrounding woodland. Its soft olive green insulated PVC exterior and lightweight geocentric form ensures it remains discreet and synthetic to the area. The durable, corrosion-protected and UV-resistant materials provide long-term resilience and easy maintenance, while the insulated outer skin prevents light spill, protecting the wider amenity. The toilet pods will use an above-ground, non-mains drainage system and with removable septic bags, providing an appropriate and contained solution. The dome requires no traditional foundations. It is supported by a low-impact spiked frame system that avoids ground disturbance and allows natural surface water drainage. The photo montage in your pack demonstrates the high-quality design and includes comparable approved examples at Marwell Zoo, and there also has been another approval at the Avonheath Country Park site. The proposal carries great weight under NPPF paragraph 100, which stresses the need for sufficient early years provision and places great weight on proposals that create, expand or alter such facilities. As confirmed in the committee report, this application causes no harm to nearby heritage assets, provides an acceptable drainage solution, is of high quality and sensibly designed, and supports the ongoing growth of the Kids Love Nature kindergarten through 4 full-time and 6 part-time jobs.
Thank you, Chair, members. Kids Love Nature was started in 2012 and has had a massive influence over early years education in the UK. Our remit is to connect children to nature, and as the online world infringes on their childhood at an earlier and earlier age. Our Germany as a company has been visited by lots of universities across the UK, and we've had Open University come and spend 6 weeks with us to see exactly how we connect children to nature and the importance of that. We were chosen by the British government to go on an overseas trade mission with DIT to support the best in early years practice, along with 5 other companies. And we've had visits from China, Japan, US and Canada, all coming to see the exact exciting work that we do and how we connect children to nature. The dome seems like a small addition, but it's an incredibly important part of how we connect children to nature in the UK, and the difference we can make in making sure that their childhood is different to the one that's been forced upon them by technology. We really hope that you support this project because it not only benefits the children of Wickham and the surrounding area, but it also sets a good example of how children need to be connected in the UK and how important good connection to nature is in the early years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and well done for sticking within your 3 minutes. Members, do we have any questions of clarification? Hands going up like a forest. Councillor Laming, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Just a small point. What flooring do you use inside the dome?
It's got a sub base, so it's sat on the piling screws, and then it will be based so we don't disrupt the soil. If it had to be removed, it wouldn't actually damage the ground, and then it would be just boarded out and wooden floored.
Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask what can be achieved in the dome that couldn't be achieved in a log cabin style building?
The idea of the dome is it's better environment for children to be in. We've been over to Poland and seen these different, and Europe, of course, you have seen these different domes being used, and they just are really breathable. They're really good for the space for young children to be in, and they're very adaptable for us to do. And the actual design of them, with the colouring of them as well, makes them they fit into the environment because of their green shell. We've seen them in situ. And they just make excellent classroom spaces for young children to be in. Please.
So can I ask what are the actual green credentials of the pod? Because as I understand it, it's actually made of plastic, which is not as ecologically friendly as sustainable wood.
Yeah, the plastic, the covering is PVC, that is correct, but the idea of the materials, it can all be removed from the site and reused. So actually, if, for example, it needs to be taken away, there's no loss, because if you build up a wooden cabin, chance most of the things it can't actually be used. With this one, it can be pulled up anywhere. It's a large structure that has minimal impact on the ecology of the site in regards to its design and in build, and it can be removed and put somewhere else.
We had a gap. Yes, Councillor White.
I think Councillor Langford-Smith's kind of stolen a bit of my question. It was about the PVC, but to me it looks quite a temporary structure. So, I mean, you said it was long-term and durable, and how long would you expect?
Lifespan on the skin is 15 years. That's what the minimum manufacturing guarantee is on the skin of the life. So it's 15 years. And the reason why it's situ, and I'll come back to the question about this situation, we have a full-time gardener on that site. These children go out and work on this site all day. The food that they're growing on that site goes into the kitchen and goes into the food prep, and they're eating it for lunch. This is about connecting them into a space where that gardening and process of seed to plate is happening all in one space. And it's just a beautiful opportunity to really connect these children to nature in a way that we can't at the moment.
So, no more questions? Thank you very much indeed. You may return to your seats. That's it, lovely. Thank you. Cameron, do you want to update us on anything following that contribution?
No updates. Thank you, Chair.
So members, questions on the report, please. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you. Can I ask a point of clarification? So I know when planning permission is granted for a wooden structure in the countryside, it's deemed to be temporary if it can be moved. Is that the same with this, or would this be a permanent planning permission that would then make that meadow brownfield? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So there is no temporary limitations proposed through the application. So this would give permission for that to be there for as long as it needed to be.
Councillor Godfrey.
I wonder if the officer could confirm that the red line is correct, as it doesn't appear to cover the rest of the nursery school.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the red line is correct. It just covers the area related specifically to the classroom. So that's the area that they're seeking permission in, and then the red line to the Winchester Road as required by legislation. So the red line is correct.
In his report, this area is in the countryside. It's outside the settlement. I'm not quite sure what policies apply in what he describes as semi-rural areas. I don't recall any mention of semi-rural land in the local plan. So we are dealing with a property in MTRA 4, and as he rightly points out in the report, this allows for buildings to be expanded and for properties that need to be in the countryside. I cannot see any other buildings within the red line that need expanding, nor any business that needs to be there. Why is this being considered in the countryside?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just noting the kindergarten are obviously constrained just sort of where their location is, just outside the settlement boundary. So yes, MTRA 4, they are in the countryside, and also SP3, the emerging plan. So that does allow for established businesses to expand as long as development is proportional to nature in terms of nature and scale. We also have policy DM10, which outlines in a rural site, we will consider applications that are required for operational reasons, and that does include educational facilities, which this falls under. So taking into account both those, and then when we're talking about semi-rural, we're talking more about the character sitting on the edge of the settlement boundary, but also being in close proximity to residential development. That's what we're considering. So our assessment is that it does meet the requirements of both MTRA 4, the emerging SP3, and then policy DM10. Thank you.
Any further questions on the report? Debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. We've previously had applications for sort of nature schools for new nature schools in the countryside, and they've been rejected due to policy MTRA 4, as Councillor Godfrey says. They are always quite difficult to set up and establish, because if you're having it within the settlement boundary, you're quite restricted on that nature aspect. But also then you tend to have refusal, as we've had before, in regards to the noise aspect and impact on neighbours. But this is an established location that already is operating and is looking to expand in regards to this aspect. So I think in regards to the concerns around policy M3A 4, although you could consider them quite valid, I think that this proposal should be quite welcomed, as it's already an established business in a countryside location. location. There's no objections in regards to environmental health, as there's already an established children's school there. So I think on balance, these sites are incredibly difficult to come by. They're incredibly welcomed, certainly by parents, and the ecological, not just the education value to students, but the rewards, obviously for the children there, it outweighs any concerns that I have in regards to the proposal. So I'll welcome it and I'll be supporting it.
Smith, you wanted to contribute?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. It occurs to me that, you know, members are concerned about its out of settlement position, and following on from Councillor Williams' comments about it providing an additional facility to an existing use, you might want to consider conditioning it to be used only in association with the existing kindergarten school, because we don't currently have that condition. So I would suggest that as an additional condition.
Thank you. I think that would be very helpful. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do have concerns about the fact that it is in MTRA4 land, and whilst I think the operational need for it to be in the countryside is potentially a little bit dubious, it's not directly co-located to the established commercial business. It's not right next to it. I'm also concerned about the setting of this, the grade 2 listed building, and the erection of a large plastic structure within the setting of a grade 2 listed building. So I will listen to debate.
I think that is addressed in the report, but thank you for that. Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you. I said earlier in the meeting, but I am really unhappy about any development in the countryside unless it needs to be there. And I've heard nothing which says this has to be there. This business promotes itself by saying it already has 3 classrooms, indoor classrooms, and an outdoor classroom on this site. So why would it want, what possible justification could there be for having a 4th classroom, which will have an impact on the countryside, particularly in such, as the supporter stated, such a large structure, which is wholly out of character with the surrounding area. It would be wrong of us to support a development in the countryside where you allow a 5 metre high bit of plastic to be permanently sited here, where it is meant to be open grazing land. And I think that would be very unwise. Something much more sympathetic to the character of that area could be found, which would suit small children just as well.
Councillor Leaming.
Thank you, Chair. I think the suggestion of the changing of the additional clause will be most beneficial to us, so I'd like to propose that. I also think that this is a very good opportunity for children. The idea of using a geodome is quite innovative and constructive in the way that the school is constructed. The size of the dome, the height is obviously controlled by the diameter of there, so there's no objection from me on that. And I think this is generally a very good scheme. And I think the officer did a good job in his report.
Thank you, Councillor Leaming. Councillor White.
As it happens, I know the site really well because years ago my son used to go to nursery there a long time ago before it was this nursery, and they've always made really good use of the grounds, even years ago when it was that nursery. And although it's, and people are maybe misunderstanding the sort of rural nature of it, I mean it is semi-rural, I would say, and it's that paddock and the other surrounding areas of Park Place are kind of used by the nursery, but it's separate in terms of the look of it. So that this building would be quite separate from the main building. Also, the main building that the nursery use is quite old, and you know, there's not that much space for the children. So this would be a great addition to the space and be able to make more use of the paddock and the grounds. So knowing the place really well, I do think that it's a good development. I've got a few concerns about the PVC, but I think that's been covered. It's durable and recyclable, hopefully.
Thank you. Councillor Aaron.
Similarly, thank you. Similarly, I think it's a wonderful thing for these children, and I think the presence of large houses around and other buildings, even on the other side of the road, do not, although it's outside a settlement area, it's not in a really what you could call a rural area because of the buildings around it. So on the whole, I think this is a great thing for children and an exciting design. So I support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Yes, it seems to me a perfectly bona fide and reputable organisation that are doing a lot for children. I've always been a great fan of geodesic domes. I think this lovely, simple shape. We've got a big one out here at Morn Hill, and it looks fantastic in the landscape. I always query why you have to have a building and then try to hide it from everybody. And I think if you've got a good design, I mean, the Parthenon isn't surrounded by a hedge. And the only thing I would query is covering it in olive green plastic, because actually green stands out very awkwardly in the countryside, in the landscape. And actually having, you know, a sort of lower key mushroom pale grey colour disappears much more. But I'm fully in support of this.
Thank you very much. So if there's no more debate, we will go to the decision. And this includes the new condition which will link this development, this dome, to the operation of the kindergarten. So if the kindergarten stops operating, the dome will be removed. Am I right? Yes, and we will agree that exact wording of that in due course. So those in favour of the recommendation to approve this application, please. And those against? So that application is approved. Thank you very much. Now we now go to the reports from the appeals, quarterly appeals, quarterly reports, which I think is going to be presented to us by Deborah Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the papers are there for members to see, and you'll note that we've added in some explanation on the decision taken by Inspector, so hopefully that's useful to you.
Yeah, very much welcome. Thank you.
You'll see that we've performed very well in terms of appeals in the last quarter. 14 dismissed, only 3 allowed. It's noteworthy that 2 of the 3 that were allowed relate to TPO applications and simply came down to the matter of was it reasonable to impose a condition requiring replanting. The inspector decided no. So there was only 1 that was actually allowed against planning applications. Noteworthy that item 6 was a committee decision. You supported the officer recommendation, and that was dismissed, so that's positive. Item 7. Item 7, the recommendation was overturned by committee. That related to a dog walking park. We seem to be getting quite a few of those recently, so it's really helpful to get inspectors' appeal decisions where they think there is some harm associated with that. So that's a good learning point. Item 11 was a committee decision, and again, you supported the officer recommendation. That was dismissed. And the only other one I'd draw your attention to is the public inquiry at item 12. That was a very good decision for the council on Laleham Lane, largely because the inspector found in support of our 5-year housing land supply calculations. So that's been really positive for us in setting a good foundation for us moving forward. So those were my updates, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. No surprise in querying the one in Denmead. The application at number 19, does that now mean that they have planning permission? Because all of the other planning permissions that have been granted on that site have been temporary 5-year planning permissions. But I'm unsure if that's the case with this one. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, just give me a second. I'm reading through the text to that. Doesn't it say 202?
I'll just quickly read the inspector's decision, won't take me long.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just quickly read the inspector's decision, won't take me long. It'll probably be they appealed against, sorry, members. So they appealed probably against the enforcement notice, and there are multiple grounds upon which you can appeal against an enforcement notice. One of them is that planning should be given. So if we serve an enforcement notice because of a gypsy traveller incursion, they don't have planning permission, we serve the enforcement notice. One of the appeal grounds will be we want planning permission in any event. So what they do is they make, if you like, that application before the inspector to the appeal against the enforcement notice. There are other grounds as well, that the development didn't take place, that is time barred because they've been there for 10 years or so, that the breach is substantially different as to what's pleaded in the enforcement notice. So probably in this case, what's happened is they've made what is known as a deemed application for planning permission, and then the inspector said, yes, because of our lack of gypsy and traveller supply sites, he or she found 3.2 years, I think, from memory.
Yes.
Therefore, the tilted balance applies. Because we don't have a supply of sites, that then means there's a presumption in favour of development to meet the needs for gypsies and travellers. Therefore, the inspectors probably granted that plan permission with a temporary 5-year. I can check it quickly, but that's probably what's happened, but I'll need to look at it.
It definitely says on the report,
Does
on the next, it's temporary 5-year permission.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't know if the temporary was the enforcement notice that they were appealing against, and if that was dismissed
No,
and the
this is-
temporary was
this
dismissed
is
and
what-
they've got planning.
This is what the
So
inspector.
the enforcement notice was quashed because if the inspector's facing a deemed planning permission appeal up against the enforcement notice, the inspector then goes into planning mode, puts the notice to one side, quashes it, but says you're successful on your deemed application, and then they will grant the permission.
Yes, Councillor Godfrey.
That enforcement appeal raises a problem we've known about for some time about not having sufficient pictures, which I think is still the case with the emerging plan. Do we have an update on the Gypsies and Travellers policy?
No further update other than over and above the policies that are coming forward. Yes, we still think there will be a shortfall, but then you do rely on windfall sites coming forward within that calculation.
So if nobody else has got any comments or questions on the report, could I just congratulate our officers on an excellent track record on appeals. I think we've done very well, and good to see that an overturn by the committee was supported by the inspector, which was the Alresford dog walking application. So pleased to see that. So if there's nothing else to report on this, thank you very much indeed for that, and thank you for this morning, everybody, and see you next month. Thank you.